Bubblegum. Nice. Springboard. Launchpad. Catalyst. Spark. DSV, how's it going, man? How you doing? Nightwalker, how's it going? Autumn leaves. Test tube. Fallopian tube. Inner tube. Vacuum tube? I'm so... Oh my god. Someone get this away from me. I'm too good. Oh my god. What happened last stream? What happened last stream? Klein bought the... hey Justin, how you doing? Klein bought the Sun Charm for £2,000 from Eye of Wisdom. 5:30 a.m. Jesus Christ, Nightwalker. If it helps, I'm gonna be doing a 6 a.m. stream tomorrow. So if that helps, I'm gonna be up at 5. So I sympathize. So he bought the Flaring Sun Charm, and then we started preparing for the we started preparing for the fight with Miss Sharon and Merrick. And then that fight is probably going to happen today. Or is going to happen right now, rather. Summertime, Unforgettable, Autumn Leaves, Witchcraft. I don't know what that has in common, but I fucking got it. Let's go. Great American Songbooks. Never would have gotten that. Let's fucking go. No, I don't want to do this. Nice. So I'm time for peak. I guess so. I also learned, I don't know. We learned some lore stuff, but nothing too important, I don't think. We learned from Alger about some mission that he took on or some fucking thing. I don't know. Some detective mission or some bullshit. I don't fucking know. Or what was it? Investigation mission, rather. Sorry. But I doubt that's too important. Although I did make a theory on it, so... How's everyone doing this fine morning, night, afternoon, all fucking times of the day, basically. Oh, what do I... Waffle. Yes, we played that yesterday. I doubt I can get it again, but we're gonna try. Wait, I played this... Did I play this today? Oh no, next Waffle in 3 minutes? That's kind of crazy. Why does it reset at 8 p.m.? This is so stupid. No, whatever. Let's do... Tradle. Jesus Christ. Jewelry, cars, scrap iron. Cars are a big part. Makes me think Japan. No. 8,000... Germany? That seems... What country exports cars? What the fuck? Hey, Sound, how's it going, man? How you doing? Country exports cars. What? Korea, that's true, but Korea is very close to Japan. It wouldn't be 8,000 kilometers away. It's closer to Germany, so it's like... Yeah, this would be like Eastern Europe somewhere, because Germany is Northern Europe. Let me try, like, Romania would probably be too far away. Oh, Italy's actually... No, Italy would be west of Germany, not east. Very close to Romania. So it's got to be one of the Baltics, probably. Turkmenistan doesn't export any fucking cars, do they? I don't know. Ah, fuck, no. Let me change the song. I don't like it. I have arrived. We can start. Hey, Bullseye. Thanks for popping by. How you doing, man? We're gonna get started in just a minute. Once it hits 8 o'clock, or I fuck this, whichever comes first. Close to Romania. No, south of Romania. I don't know. I'm not great at my geography. Fuck. Lada. Well, Lada would be Russian. Russia would be east of Ukraine, not south. I don't know what the fuck south of Ukraine is. Belarus. We go with that one. Fuck it. I don't know. What the fuck was it? Lebanon? You're 3 hours ahead of me then, because it's about to be 5. Yeah, yes. It's 8 o'clock now for me, Bullseye. You're 3. Oh, so you're on the West Coast then. I see. Does Bulgaria or Serbia produce cars? I didn't fucking think so, but I also didn't. I also didn't think fucking Lebanon did. What the fuck? Lebanon? That's crazy. All right, we're at 3:47 today. Would have never guessed Lebanon. No shot. That's why you randomly streamed at 3 a.m. the other day. Oh yeah, I'm gonna do another 3 a.m. stream for you. Well, in like 10 hours. Thank you, Justin. Chapter 347. Let me just change the titles and stuff and I'll get going. I won't let Easy rest? What? He's the one who's reading 30 chapters in the next 2 days. What the fuck? Although, to be honest, I've been averaging 15 chapters a day for the past, I don't know, 2 weeks, so I can't judge him too much. Chapter 347, Zombie and Werewolf. Running ahead of the group was Merrick, with his disheveled hair was completely blown back by the wind, and his expression was hideous and twisted. He was even faster than a steam locomotive at peak speed. With a whoosh, he arrived at the entrance to the clearing. But even so, he was still unable to make escape from his pursuers. The closest figure to him was a man who had the same pale complexion as himself, with distinct dark patches on his face, as if they were healing marks from rotting wounds. The malice in his eyes was completely undisguised and unrestrained. He looked more like a zombie who was craving fresh flesh than a human being, and Klein made a guess that was Jason, Sequence 6. He's trying to catch up after his Volume 2 vacation. Not really, because after next week, I'm taking a bit of a hiatus too. I will stream as well, but it'll be a lot less because I'm visiting my granddad. I think, at least for the moment, yes, Nightwalker. So he'll build up a lead, a bit of a lead again. But by the end of next week, I should be within like 20 or 30 chapters to him when I leave. So if he can build up like a 100 chapter lead or something in the meantime, I'll catch him again. It's all good. The distance between Jason and Merrick remained between 7 or 8 meters. Oh shit, let me change the music. The distance between Jason and Merrick remained within 7 or 8 meters, sometimes lengthening, sometimes shortening. This repeated again and again, and they ventured back and forth. Thanks, Buzz. I appreciate it, man. More than 10 meters behind him, a figure was left far behind. It was a thin but muscular man. His hair was shaved very short, and his hair stood erect like spikes. Nice, chill, relaxing battle. Yeah, exactly. Just lo-fi music in the back. They're like la-di-da-di-da. And he swung his arms. The tip of his palms flashed with a metallic light, reflecting the weak crimson moonlight. Those were black fingernails which were as long as daggers. Werewolf Tyre. Klein chanted the person's sequence and name silently. In his mind, the wall that was splashed with blood appeared in his mind. It was a scene with intestines and limbs splattered all over the ground. Merrick used all of his strength as he ran while Jason gritted his teeth and ran as fast as he could. At some point, the healed dark spots on his face began to swell, as if there was some sort of rotting liquid was about to ooze out. Oh, should I do walls closing in? I don't know if it was that serious. Alright, we can do walls closing in. Fuck it, why not? The two of them left puddles of water and moist soil that was turning into white frost in their wake. The withered weeds were lifted up by the winds created by the two of them. As they slowly fell, they began to rot and decay at a speed invisible to the naked eye. Suddenly, a pale hand reached out from the frosted soil and accurately grabbed Jason's ankles. His zombies. Jason twisted his body and forcibly kicked out, breaking the hand's wrist and sending it flying. The remaining stump's flesh and blood had long since rotted, and white maggots struggled to swarm outwards. Merrick stopped, pinched his lips with his right hand, and let out a shrill whistle. The soil in different parts of the clearing were lifted, and the expressionless corpse sat up. At the same time, a chilly wind suddenly swirled. Countless transparent shadows seemed to have caught the wind of a bloody feast, and none of them wanted to fall behind as they rushed towards Jason. Some pulled his arms, others pulled his calves, and some others hugged his head. Jason stopped and grunted. The shadows flew out, one after another. Some of them screamed miserably and disappeared, while others stayed in their original spots, lost. At almost the same time, Merrick and Jason both raised their right hands, thumbs held up to their forefingers, with their index fingers aiming at each other. Suddenly, the air between them exploded as black wisps of air billowed upward. Merrick took a step back, and a few strands of his disheveled hair withered in a blink of an eye and fluttered to the ground. Merrick, you're still so weak. You still don't understand how to use the power of desire, Jason said with a low laugh. At this moment, Werewolf Tyre had already arrived at his side. As for Steve, the Sequence 5 Beyonder in charge of the operation, he was nowhere to be found. Don't be in such a hurry to finish off Merrick. Wait for Sharon to come and save him. Lord Steve is about to arrive, Werewolf Tyre whispered to Jason. He extended his bright red tongue and licked his lips. I wonder what Sharon will look like when she has her clothes off. Jesus Christ. Before he could finish his sentence, he suddenly saw Jason turn his head. His face was deathly pale, and there were two identical figures in his eyes. Black regal dress, light blonde hair, exquisite face, and pale skin. He struck out with both palms and gripped Werewolf Tyre's neck, and the creaking sound of bones giving way sounded out. Wraith Sharon had attacked. Tyre inhaled sharply, making his neck bulge like a water pipe. It grew strands of stiff black hair and briefly resisted the force that would snap his windpipe and neck. His eyes gradually rolled back, showing his whites as his red tongue hung out and sticky saliva drooled from his lips. However, his right hand had accurately reached into its pocket. He had cracked a preset spirituality seal. So wait, this person, so Sharon just got, who the fuck was this? Jason to kill Tyre, basically, because she possessed him? Okay. However, his right hand had accurately reached into his pocket and had cracked a preset spirituality seal. The empty clearing, together with the warehouses, suddenly lit up as a crimson moonlight filled the entire area. Jason's grip on Werewolf Tyre's neck began to weaken, and a figure in a small soft hat appeared behind him. Tyre's face broke out into a smile that was both smug and cruel. His right hand took out a miniature full moon from his pocket, a crimson full moon. It was a dark red accessory that constantly emitted a serene luster, shaped like a full moon. It had crimson rubies embedded along its circumference. It was a dark red accessory. Is this the artifact, or is this like a weaker version of it? I'm so curious. Is this the artifact they were mentioning that that could simulate the effects of a full moon, or is there like is this another one? It was a dark red accessory that constantly emitted a serene luster, shaped like a full moon. It had crimson rubies embedded along its circumference. The Scarlet lunar artifact. Okay. In the middle of a symbol that in the middle was a symbol that symbolized the moon, as well as many other mysterious labels. Sharon narrowed her eyes instinctively and retreated 2 steps back. Her incorporeality slowly receded. Her legs no longer seemed capable of supporting her weight. She fell limply to the ground, her black and complicated regal dress stained with dust and mud. Werewolf Tyre raised his palm-sized round accessory high into the air, laughing as he gasped for breath. Lord Steve was right. You would definitely attempt a counterattack. And Sharon, your target for possession would definitely be Jason, whose sequence is higher than mine. Therefore, the Scarlet Lunar Corona was given to me. Guess where he is now? This isn't as Sharon had expected. It seems like I can only choose the best opportunity to strike myself. Klein frowned as he heard, and he forcibly suppressed the anxiety in his heart. At this point, Werewolf Tyre was in no hurry to attack. He knew that the longer the effects of the Scarlet Corona lasted, the weaker Sharon would become, and the more Merrick would be in pain. In Jason's cold eyes, which usually had a hint of savagery and madness, there was no longer any rationality left in them. He was also affected by the Scarlet Lunar Corona, but he was used to indulging his desires, so he didn't feel any pain. Instead, he felt a thirst for fresh blood before his eyes. Wait. I thought the user of the Scarlet Corona didn't get affected. But maybe I was wrong. Jason let out a low, inhumane growl from his throat. His exposed skin and hair turned white. At that moment, Sharon raised her arms with difficulty and used her left hand to remove the black glove that she wore on her right hand palm. Jason happened to lunge at her, and a thin layer of ice covered the soil around her. Suddenly, their endless rays of light burst forth from Sharon's palm. As they fed on Sharon's spirituality, they interweaved in front of a small doll-like lady to form a bronze door, which was covered with mysterious patterns and filled with an indescribable smell. Oh, it's his teammate that got affected. I see. Okay. Sorry, I didn't bother to memorize the names of the 3 people, so who the fuck Steve, Jason, and Tyre are, and what their I know Steve is the strong guy, but which one is Tyre and which one is Jason? I don't know which one is like the werewolf or which one is the whatever. I don't fucking know. The door swung open and a creak and a crack appeared. From the crack, a pair of pale or transparent hands or arms covered in teeth or bloody skinless arms stretched out, crossed the void, and grabbed zombie Jason. The werewolf artifact didn't get affected. It's a zombie that got affected. I see. Steve equals Wraith. Jason equals zombies. Tyre equals werewolf. Thank you, Justin. Indescribable pairs of eyes were hidden in the darkness behind the door, quietly watching the prey in front of them. Before you could even react, Jason was grabbed by the arms and was entangled by smooth and incorporeal tentacles. These tentacles were dark green vines that had countless baby faces protruding out. This is so... Who comes up with this shit, dude? What the fuck? These strange entities were crying and laughing as they tried to drag Jason behind the door. Even with his thoughts completely controlled by his bloodlust and the urge to kill, Jason instinctively felt afraid. Devil, how's it going, man? The sound from his throat suddenly intensified, and the layer of frost immediately appeared on the worrisome-looking arm. The baby face that protruded out of the dark green vines emitted painful groans as they continuously dripped with decay. Turbid yellow liquid. The pulling forces abated, but it did not disappear. Jason kept directing ghosts to interfere, but it was like throwing a stone into the sea. Even when he tried to use spells from Death's domain, they failed to deliver any striking results. His body began moving uncontrollably little by little towards the crack of the illusory mysterious door. Occasionally, he would manage to struggle and retreat a little. As he had taken a sedative in advance, Merrick was not completely taken down by the pain. Taking advantage of this, he took out the last 2 sedatives, broke the bottle with a snap, and drank 1.5 glasses in one go. The suppressed malice in his eyes weakened, and his twisted expressions returned to normal. He swept his gaze at werewolf Tyre. At the same time, with a swoosh, Tyre's thin but muscular body disappeared and reappeared more than 10 meters away. As the figure began outlining itself, an illusory image was left behind. A black aura that seemed to be alive rose up from the ground, pierced through remnant images, and disappeared with a flicker. Tyre hadn't used Blink. As his sequence didn't have the corresponding Beyonder powers to do so, he had relied on the Scarlet lunar coronas to push him to his maximum speed. Oh, he literally just blitzed out. Cool. The speed at which he moved produced Afterimages. Holy shit. Okay, we're getting... I'm curious. How fast do you have to move to produce Afterimages? I'm so curious. Okay. If the only way to see your own afterimage is to intercept the light reflecting off your initial position, so 186,000 miles per second, that feels crazy. No, that feels too much. Wait, I would assume no. Afterimages are about 200 miles per hour. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Okay, I was like, what? I was like, dude, there's no fucking shot. He's faster than light. No shot. Okay, 200 miles an hour. I can believe. Like for a blitz for a sequence 7 Beyonder. Okay, maybe. At that moment, Klein, who was hiding in the shadows at the top of the warehouse, reached into his pocket with his left hand, touching the iron cigar case. He removed its surface spirituality cage and gently opened the case. He was sure that Wraith Steve had already arrived at the scene. Otherwise, Jason would have definitely been dragged behind the terrible door if the deadlock continued. As for Werewolf Tyre, despite being augmented by the Scarlet lunar corona, he was unable to instantly finish Merrick off. When Merrick aimed the Door of Mysteries at the werewolf, the Scarlet lunar corona would end up changing owners. As soon as Klein's fingers touched the all-black eye inside the metal cigar case, his mind filled with crazy, foul, terrifying ravings. There were terrifying ravings that made his blood vessels bulge, but he felt as though his eyes were cracking and his head could explode at any moment. In the midst of these ravings, Klein saw strange, mysterious, illusory black threads. They were divided into groups. Some of them extended into Sharon's body, others were from Werewolf Tyre. They intertwined with each other without entangling themselves as they extended into the void. Among them, many of the black lines came from a spot not far away from Merrick, but they didn't overlap. Wraith Steve, he wants to possess Merrick. With a thought, Klein retracted his left hand. Instead of drawing his gun to shoot, he snapped his finger without making much of a sound. Boom. An explosion suddenly occurred between the two warehouses. The raging flames and heat caused a figure wearing a black double-breasted frock coat to float out. After catching the attention of others, Klein quickly drew his gun and pulled the trigger at the spot he remembered. At the same time, the dark gold sunbird brooch on his chest flashed with a ray of light. He added Cleave of Purification to the purifying bullet. Bang. The bullet shot out with a faint golden beam of light. So he's trying to just kill Steve on the spot? Yeah, I doubt you're going to get that lucky, kiddo. You ain't that lucky, buddy boy. There we go. Sharon said before that she had bought an artifact, so the summon door was basically that. Yeah, I figured, Khaled, but I appreciate it. Thank you. I am curious what that is, though. That thing looks cool as fuck, whatever that artifact is. A faint golden stream of light flashed past, hitting what seemed to be like an empty space. However, resplendent flames suddenly rose up from that spot, rapidly forming a silhouette who was wearing a black tuxedo and a dark red cloak. The figure's left arm was burning with holy and pure magic as it continuously emitted faint black and green smoke, illuminating his pale face in dark green glow. It was a man in his 40s with oily hair that was neatly combed with meticulous attention. His eyes were dark and green, and while possessing no emotion, there were no signs of pain. Wraith Steve. He turned his head and looked maliciously at Klein, who was at the top of the warehouse. Klein was startled as he felt his entire body suddenly turn cold. Even the heat brought by the sun brooch couldn't counteract it. His body stiffened and his eyes glazed over. His pupils reflected the same two figures: a black tuxedo, a dark red cloak, a hair slathered with oil, a pair of dark green eyes, and a pale face of a man in his 40s. Almost in an instant, Klein was placed under Steve's control, his thoughts gradually numbing. This was the ability of a Sequence 5 Wraith. It was a strange and hardly defensive ability. Fortunately, he was adequately aware of everything beforehand and prepared for it. Moreover, the exorcism effect would effectively resist the possession of evil spirits, so before his ability to think had completely disappeared, he stimulated the spirituality of his soul body and injected it into the sunbird brooch. Just as he was about to raise his hand to grab hold of his neck, a warm, pure ray of light suddenly descended from the sky, like a pillar of light from the sun, bringing with it a feeling of brilliance and holy purification as it enveloped Klein. It was a spell from the sun domain, Holy Light Summoning. Amidst the holy light, the formless possession ability was weakened, and Klein's eyes suddenly regained their luster. In close succession, his body ignited, becoming brittle and charred, leaving behind a thin piece of paper. Oh, okay, so he shirked the possession and then immediately teleported, basically. At the same time, between the gaps of the two warehouses, Klein, in his double-breasted frock coat and matching silk half-top hat, jumped out of the roaring flames from the previous explosion. His cane had been thrown away somewhere long ago, and the same figure floating above his head had also been successfully destroyed by the flames. It turned into pieces of ash and scattered into every direction. Before Klein could confirm his situation, he felt an invisible grip on his ankles. There was a firm grip on his calves, arms, chest, and clothes. His spirit vision, which had long been activated, saw blurry, transparent figures, some of them incomplete, some covered in blood, and some had burnt black skin, while others were pale and cold. So so Steve is controlling ghosts, I guess, or... A cold of unknown origins blew at his neck, making his hair stand on end and making his body tremble uncontrollably. The dark golden sunbird brooch in front of him suddenly flashed with a brilliance, and the golden illusory flames started flaring up around him one after another. Nagito, how's it going, man? These flames emitted the aura of the sun because they were so dense they formed a sea. This was fire of light from Sun Domain. The ghastly ghost around Klein shrieked silently, and vanished. And the cold wind at the back of his head was replaced by the scorching heat of the sun brooch. Klein, who was temporarily safe in this environment, couldn't help but sigh in fear. Finally finished studying math? Alright. That's good. How are you feeling for your exam? Well, that's a dumb question. No one ever feels great for an exam. I feel like I'm like hyper prepared. I'm still like, fuck, I don't know everything. Even though he had prepared ahead of time and obtained items to counter his opponents, a one-on-one battle with a Sequence 5 Beyonder was still precarious. The performance had almost ended in failure from the very beginning. Not too far from Merrick, the dark red cloaked Steve's figure turned slightly incorporeal. The bright flames on his left arm were extinguished quickly under the onslaught of the black aura. His eyes shone with dark green light filled with malice and desire. He seemed to have lost his mind and ability to think. At this moment, with the shot's warning, Merrick had distanced himself and directed the numb-faced zombies who had crawled out of the earth to surround a werewolf Tyre. They created slippery layers of ice and rotting sludge in an attempt to affect the enemy's mobility. Tyre held onto the tiny moon that was emitting crimson light as he ran without stopping, but he was blocked by a zombie that he casually swiped down. I think that I'm ready until the exam start. Yeah, exactly. That's why as soon as I started an exam, my first thing to do would be I would flip through all the questions, just skim them and go, okay, I know this, I know this, I know this, I know this. Because it gave me like a huge amount of like confidence. I was like, okay, I didn't just walk in here like a fucking moron who doesn't know anything, which is good. Although I guess it never happened to me, but I guess if I ran into a question that I had absolutely no idea, it would demoralize the fuck out of me. But I'm graduated now. Well, I guess I haven't graduated yet, but I'm finished on my exams now, so fucking done. The zombie was immediately split into 6 pieces. The rotten flesh and wriggling maggots sprinkled all over the ground. That's what I do. Nice. You also have an exam tomorrow? Good luck, Khaled. Wait, you have an exam on Saturday? Yeah, that's not too uncommon. I used to have some too. They were rare, but I did used to have them. When in doubt, choose B. Really? We have a saying here and it goes C for correct, so we always choose C. The werewolf is immediately split into 6 pieces. The long rotten flesh and wriggling maggots sprinkled on the ground. Werewolf Tyre froze for a moment, looking at his claws in disbelief. Only then did he understand the augmentation of a secret lunar corona brought him wasn't only restricted to speed. He felt that he had mastered some powerful and strange spell. It's Sunday for me to... Oh, shit, yeah. Sorry, well, that's even worse. Hold on. You have a fucking test on Sunday? Ugh, I've never had one on Sunday. I did used to have a couple on Saturdays. Sunday sucks. Oh, my God. Tyre stopped running and turned to face pale Merrick. At this moment, zombie Jason was drawing closer to the illusory but mysterious door. His body was covered with dark green vines that had baby faces protruding. He was being dragged by arms that were either full of teeth or skinless. His eyes were almost touching the crack of the bronze door as he stared coldly at the indescribable eyes hidden in the darkness. It was as if that place was the final resting place for his heart. No! His body, which was controlled by the bloodlust and the desire to kill, shouted shrilly. Werewolf Tyre, who was about to counterattack, stopped instantaneously, clenching his teeth. He threw away the miniature version of the Crimson Moon at Steve. Only by allowing a Sequence 5 Beyonder to regain his strength would he be augmented, allowing the battle to quickly come to an end. Only then would Jason have a chance of being rescued. Upon seeing this, Klein's eyes lit up, and he immediately snapped his fingers. Boom! In the Scarlet Lunar Corona's trajectory, a pre-buried explosion threw up the soil, blew out a impactful gust of wind, and set off a scarlet flame. Struck by this, the Scarlet Lunar Corona was redirected and landed in another direction. Another explosion blew up, inducing a fiery light to rise up. Klein leaped up and pounced at the Scarlet Lunar Corona, which wasn't too far from him. Suddenly, a pale palm appeared right in front of the Scarlet Lunar Corona's landing spot and grabbed it. It was none other than Steve, who had disappeared and then reappeared. His instincts made him chase the full moon. Fuck. With a soft sound, Steve grabbed the Scarlet Lunar Corona. His dark green eyes, which were full of malice and desire, gained a trace of spiritual luster. I sent some art in the artwork channel. Sounds good, Justin. I'll check it out at the end of the... I assume it has to do with the art or the characters. I'll check it out at the end of the fight. My math and French exams are on Sunday. Ugh. You have exams next week too, Nightwalker? Jesus Christ, it's exam season. Fucking A. This caused him to return from the form of a pure wraith to a Sequence 5 powerhouse. He smirked at Klein. He wasn't in a hurry to deal with this weak opponent, so he left his figure to disappear once again. Klein, who had already thrown himself out, rolled twice, reached into his pocket with his left hand, and once again gently flipped open the iron cigar case and touched Rosego's all-black eye. Amidst the raving that caused his tears and snot to constantly flow, Klein saw more strange black lines, and from their origin he caught a glimpse of the invisible Steve. The French exam might maybe hit harder than exam. Oh, French exam is way harder than exam. No shot. Yeah, none on Steve, Jason, or Tyre though. Yeah, I don't care about them either way. He was closing in on Sharon, who was slumped to the ground weakly at high speeds. He wanted to control her, rescue Jason, and put an end to the battle. Sharon was their main target for this operation. Klein suddenly retracted his left hand and with a thought, once again injected his spirituality into the sun brooch. 2, 1. A holy beam of light descended from the sky, enveloping Sharon from behind. Steve, who was wearing a dark red cloak, suddenly appeared a few meters away but barely avoiding the holy light. With the augmentation of the Scarlet Lunar Corona, his speed was already frightening to the point of him being capable of effectively dodging in an instant. At the same time, the genuflecting... What the actual fuck is genuflecting? What is this word? Genuflect. Lower one's body briefly by bending one knee to the ground, typically in worship or as a sign of respect. What the fuck? There's a word for that? I'm much better at math than languages. Oh yeah, you and me both sound. Jesus. Especially French. Ugh, horrible language. But at the same time, the genuflecting Klein had raised his right hand and pulled the trigger of the revolver. His target was Jason. A resplendent bullet flew out, aimed directly at Jason's back, and was about to help him enter the bronze door of mystery. But at that moment, Steve disappeared and reappeared behind Jason, blocking the bullet with his open left palm. The sunlight from the explosion had made him shake his arm in pain. He narrowed his eyes as his skin was constantly charring and peeling, but it quickly healed. Suddenly, he heard a crisp sound. Klein had snapped his fingers again. A nearby explosive exploded, resulting in the resulting shockwave and bullet-like stones shot out in all directions. A large number of them landed on Jason and Steve's body. No. With a blood-curdling scream, the clothes on Jason's side tore apart, and the quickly darkening white spots on his skin appeared as if fresh blood was about to seep out. To a zombie with a body as hard as steel, this wasn't an effective injury, but to a person like Jason who was struggling to hold on, it was equivalent to the beckoning of death. He could no longer hold on as those terrifying arms quickly pulled him into the crack of the bronze door. Jason's scream resounded into the distance as the mysterious and illusory door closed with a clang, devouring the rest of his screams and isolating it from the world. Bye-bye, Jason, you little shit. Alright, now there's more of a chance, because now it's 3-on-2. Okay. The clearing in the middle of the warehouse turned completely silent. Jason had completely disappeared, as though he was never born into this world. Steve's eyes widened as he opened his mouth, letting out a very angry, "Damn it!" As his voice resounded, Klein felt as if someone had heavily hammered him on the head. His vision was blurry, and whatever he breathed in smelled of blood, and his vision had become blood red. For a short time, his ears were filled with a buzzing sound, and couldn't hear anything else. After Tyre delivered the Scarlet lunar corona, he had grown black fur and sharp fangs. He was no longer immune to its effects and painfully covered his ears. Blood even flowed out from the corners of his eyes and mouth. Merrick, who had seized the opportunity to grab him, was in an even worse state. His control and malice, which had been suppressed by the sedative, had reared its head once again, causing him to almost lose control of his zombies. His expression was extremely twisted. How is Merrick already losing control again? This guy's fucking useless. He had sedatives, came in, almost lost control, had more sedatives, and is now almost losing control again. This guy's oh my god, what a fucking loser. Jesus. Romero, how's it going, man? Jesus Christ. Merrick is a bum, dude. This guy might be more of a bum than fucking, than the Viscount. This is crazy. This guy's just getting dog walked out here. Have you been to a doctor, Romero? Do you know what causes them? What the fuck? Due to Wraith Steve's shriek, the weakened Miss Sharon also revealed a painful expression. However, she still managed to close her palm with much difficulty, causing the ray of light to be severed, and which caused the illusory, mysterious bronze door to disappear. Klein knew that the situation was turning bad. Enduring his headache, he quickly took a step back and entered the fire. His figure quickly disappeared and reappeared in another explosion. That happened in a different direction. He had just jumped out in an attempt to strike back when he saw Steve, the middle-aged man with a dark cloak, stop in his tracks. Instead of chasing him, he thought he was waiting for something. Klein suddenly felt agitated. His head felt dizzy and his stomach spasmed. He was quickly weakened and had no idea why. Merrick, who had just recovered from the sharp shriek, had an abnormal reaction. He constantly stretched out his arms to grab at himself, as if his body had suffered an uncontrollable itch. He gasped for breath as he used his long, sharp nails to rip apart his clothing and left white streaks along his body. The more he scratched, the deeper it became, causing its redness to seep out. Sharon fell to the ground but couldn't stand again. Her blue eyes lost their focus as though she couldn't see anything. "Poison," she whispered. These guys are actually cooked. If Klein wasn't here, they would have just died on the spot. What is this? Unhinged, how's it going, man? Romero Sensor. He's attacking kids in the crowd again? What the fuck? Not far from her, Steve looked at his tightly clenched fist. He seemed rather fearful of the bronze door that was covered with the mysterious pattern and the indescribable smell. He didn't dare to recklessly make a move. In his right hand, he held a scarlet lunar corona and the crimson moon that was releasing a cold glow. Using his left hand, he took out a brown, translucent glass bottle from his pocket and he snorted. Biological poison bottle can be used to randomly create different kinds of toxins. As long as you open it, the poisons will gradually spread into its surroundings. It will be effective in less than a minute, and the symptoms will only worsen. In 4 minutes, if you don't leave the poison-filled environment, the effects will be unpreventable, such as death. The sealed artifact hard counters them. I don't care. I don't care. You gotta... Yeah. The prisoner slanders cook in me. I'm not slandering the prison sequence. I'm slandering these two bums. Get it together. That's like saying, like, oh, basketball players suck. And then it's like... Oh, or sorry. That's like saying, like, a particular... like, I don't know. I don't watch the NBA. But, like, let's say, like, a particular really bad... like, oh, like, Bronny's not a good basketball player, for example. And then you go, oh, you're slandering NBA players. No, dog, I'm not slandering NBA players. I'm slandering Bronny. Let's be clear. Sharon is like, come on, what the fuck? Get it together. What a pity. I thought Jason would be able to hold on to this moment. Sharon, you wouldn't have been affected since the spirit body isn't afraid of poison. But unfortunately, the Scarlet Lunar Corona here prevents you from switching states. Perhaps you can give up resisting and let me understand your hidden charms. He appeared to be leisurely introducing the abilities of the mystical item in his hand, as though he wanted to wait for Klein and company to completely lose their ability to resist before attacking. However, Tyre didn't understand his intention. Under the influence of the Scarlet Lunar Corona, the irrational werewolf started his counterattack without hesitation. He threw himself forward, flailed his claws, and swiped across Merrick's chest, tearing it apart. The sound of his nails tearing through steel sounded in succession, and Merrick's skin finally showed signs of bloody wounds. Klein pinched his forehead. He felt like his forehead was starting to heat up. But the negative effects weren't as bad as what Steve mentioned. Seems like the poison has been weakened by the sun brooch's constant purification and purging effect. Klein sneered. Are you planning on attacking us after we succumb to poison? Why do you think I didn't use fireworks just now? Why do you think I relied on explosives? With so many explosives, I definitely attracted the attention of others, and the official Beyonders nearby are rushing here at this very moment. You don't have much time. Steve turned his head to look at Klein, whose face he couldn't identify thanks to the paint that was smeared on it. He suddenly laughed and said, I forget, there's a bug that I can easily deal with. Don't worry, you'll definitely be dead before the people from the church arrive. Before he could finish his sentence, Klein raised his revolver in his right hand and shot out a purifying bullet. Steve moved his footsteps slightly, traversing several meters in turn. Along the way, he left Afterimages behind. However, Klein's bullet didn't hit where he had aimed. Instead, it hit the middle of a clearing, piercing through the soil and creating a loud commotion. A breeze of spirituality blew past, and both Merrick's zombie and Steve's shadows stopped moving at the same time. In a split second, they charged out rapidly, charging towards the center of the clearing like a pack of hungry dogs at mealtime. Steve, who was about to use arcane methods to control Klein and kill him, was stunned. Thus, he revealed a puzzled and surprised expression. Why? For some baffling reason, he discovered that he couldn't command the undead he controlled. It was a first for him. At the same time, Klein snapped his fingers, detonating a few more bombs and setting off scarlet flames that soared into the sky in different locations. His figure leaped from one bonfire to the other as he blinked towards the clearing's exterior. "You wanna run?" Steve whispered just as he was about to turn incorporeal to chase his target. He found that the zombies and shadows had dug out a square metal box and were fighting for inside the item. Oh, he threw an ASIC's copper whistle in there. Soon, one of the shadows succeeded. Its body swelled and seemingly gained intelligence. It flew in another direction. So that item is used to delay my actions and allow him to escape. He still doesn't understand what a Wraith and Scarlet lunar corona are capable of. Steve temporarily gave up on chasing Klein, putting away the biological poison bottle. His body suddenly disappeared and appeared on a thin layer of ice that formed in a puddle of water. He relied on his terrifying speed to drag out Afterimages and arrived behind that giant shadow. Steve's eyes flashed with a dark green light. His shadow instantly dispersed without a sound, and the item in its hand dropped. The other zombies and shadows completely disregarded the oppressive aura of the mighty existence as they rushed over to grab it. Steve was more and more alarmed and curious. He discovered that his spiritual intuition couldn't draw any revelations from the object causing the rioting of the zombies and shadows. He stepped forward and grabbed the object with his left hand. It was a dark gold key ring. Hanging from it was an exquisite copper whistle, and the copper whistle hung a simple bronze key. Hold on. It was a key ring, held it, which had the whistle, and there was a simple bronze key. The simple bronze key, I assume, is the skeleton key? Interesting. They clung closely together as they remained in Steve's pale palm. At the same time, Steve's scarlet lunar corona in his right hand was quietly emanating a crimson glow, like a miniature full moon. Before his thoughts even surfaced in Steve's mind, a soft but strange sound entered his mind, ripping at his nerves and scraping at his scalp. Wait. Does Steve basically have a small full moon for him? And if he holds the key, then does he hear Mr. Door's fucking bullshit? Hold on. Steve let out a miserable scream and fell from midair to the ground. The scarlet lunar corona, which he held in his hand, and the key with the copper whistle, and the key went flying at the same time. See you later. If no one do so, I'll explain some hidden details of this fight. Alright, sounds good, Nightwalker. I appreciate you popping by, buddy. I'm not sure whether Unhinged is trolling it or remember this one. No, I'm pretty sure it's the skeleton key. Unhinged is just fucking lying. Ignore him. Always, always ignore him. You guys taught me that. How are you forgetting this? He struggled and twisted his body on the spot, his body bulging and protruding. There were arms that were as small as babies which grew out of his body, or a foul yellow liquid that sloshed inside his body. At that moment, a flame ignited, and Klein, who had escaped, leaped out and appeared in the path of the scarlet lunar corona. He didn't attempt to catch the mystical item. Instead, with a gentle flick, he diverted its trajectory, sending it flying towards the weakened Miss Sharon. Steve's cries of pain gradually died down, and the scarlet lunar corona accurately landed on Sharon. Sometimes he says the truth, it's rare, but it can happen. Yeah, but that's like saying, like, you stare at a clock that's not working, and then you go, okay, listen, if I keep checking time from this clock, eventually it'll be right. It's like, well, I guess technically true, but that's like the dumbest way of checking time, no? Steve is such a mid-name for a Beyonder? Yeah, I guess. It's rather basic, certainly. Sharon's figure instantly turned incorporeal, and the blue eyes that had lost their focus regained their luster. Yeah, that's what I mean, DSV. Even though the broken clock is right twice a day, it doesn't mean you just keep the clock broken and keep checking the time with it. And you're like, oh, fuck it, it's right sometimes. It's like, what the fuck? Because, hold on. How many times? So let's say you're checking with minutes. So 60 times 12. Well, no, not 12. 24, I guess, technically, right? They're out of the 1,440 different theoretical times it can tell, 2 of them will be right. But that hardly means you go, well, it's right sometimes, so fuck it, right? Yes, Nagito, it is right twice a day. Lord Steve just sounds so... Yeah, exactly. It sounds so... it sounds so blasé. If you spin the clock, you can make it right whenever you want. Yeah, but I can't force you to tell me truthful shit, Unhinged. I wish I could, but I can't. I mean... no, fuck it. Steve's cries of... clenching her right hand tightly, her left hand held a palm-sized accessory inlaid with the ring of dark rubies. Her body began to float. The scarlet lunar corona allowed its wielder to be immune to the influence of the full moon. Sharon was no longer weak, and in her spirit body state, she wasn't afraid of the biological poison. At this moment, the zombie and shadows gathered together once again, fighting over the chained master key and Azek's copper whistle, but Klein didn't care. He raised his left hand and pointed. The sun brooch on his chest flashed a dark golden glow and disappeared. An intense, bright, and holy light fell from the sky, shrouding the groups of zombies and shadows that were fighting over it. In what seemed like daylight, the transparent and bizarre shadows quickly melted and disappeared. The pale and stinking corpses emitted black smoke first before they ignited and burned like candles. Holy shit, that was... Klein just basically turned into a fucking nuclear weapon for the undead right there. Just ban Unhinged, send him to the Shadow Realm? Nah. He's like what is that thing? It's like he's a bad man, but he's our bad man, you know? Like it's fine. Like, you know, in like the 90s movies or whatever, there's always like a guy who comes in and like steals stuff from like a neighborhood store or whatever, and he just say, it's fine, because, like, you know, when, like, the really bad guys come around, he protects the neighborhood, so fuck it. I will tell the complete truth from now on. I'm not lying. That might be the biggest lie you've ever said, Unhinged. Jesus. A resident jester? Yeah. By the time the light disappeared, there was almost nothing left except for Azek's ancient and intricate copper whistle and the master key, which were both strung on an already blackened key ring. They lay there silently. Meanwhile, Sharon didn't care about Merrick, whose injuries were turning graver thanks to Tyre's attacks. Instead, she relied on her own ability to phase into mirror-like items to reach the thin piece of ice that Steve had previously used, and stepped out. She stretched out her right hand towards Steve, who was transforming into a monster, and opened it wide, aiming the palm of her hand at the enemy. Endless rays of light burst out and quickly intertwined to form the mysterious patterned bronze door. With a jarring sound, the small black hat on Sharon's head was blown away by a sudden gust of wind, and her carefully combed blonde hair cascaded down in a disheveled manner. It was obvious that the mystical item again, that using the mystical item again was taxing on her. The mysterious bronze door produced a crack, and a series of shrill laughter, sobbing, and shouting echoed in the air. Arms filled with either teeth or completely without skin reached out wildly and grabbed at Steve, whose pustules were bursting one by one. The strange dark green vines that accentuated an infant's face and the slippery, illusory tentacles also bound the Sequence 5 powerhouse. Sharon, my love? Yes. Absolutely. You've got it. Steve cried out. The pale yellow pus which flowed out covered his entire body, allowing him to barely resist the pull. A dark red crack appeared on his face, and it was a hole leading into a dark tunnel. Sharon used Klein's money to get that sealed artifact, most likely. Oh my god, they're meant to be. Because if it wasn't... Listen, if both of them hadn't found each other before and now, they would be dead. So they're meant to be. Fate. This is amazing. It's fated. Exactly. Oh my god, it's Kismet. With a flash of the sun brooch, 2 bullets filled with holiness accurately hit Steve in the head. Although they didn't pierce his skin or bones, they ignited resplendent flames, turning Steve into a bright torch. I'm not a anything shipper, dude. I just like Miss Bodyguard. With another scream, Steve was pulled closer to the illusory bronze door. As Klein released the revolver's cylinder, the shells fell to the ground. He took out a metal box and containing them beyond her bullets. At the same time, he once again injected his spirituality into the sun brooch. A pure and flawless pillar of light fell from the sky and instantly hit Steve's body. Taking this breather, Klein inserted 3 purifying bullets and 3 exorcism bullets into the cylinder and snapped it shut. He once again aimed at Steve's face, and with a flash of the dark golden brooch, he pulled the trigger hard 6 times in a row. Holy shit. Oh. This motherfucker went, you don't just die, you get super death. Nice. So wait, is Merrick dead? The fucking... is Merrick dead, or is he hanging on? Because, like, he was poisoned, he had his fucking... his body was ripped into. This motherfucker just sounded like he was just dying. The fact that Unhinged says he's dead immediately makes me think he's probably alive. I swear, Unhinged has actually a superpower. He just doesn't understand how to use it. If, like, Unhinged, I'll be really honest with you. What you should do with your reputation is you should tell the truth. Because I wouldn't believe you. You could come in here and be like, hey man, did you know the sun came out this morning? And I'd be like, holy shit, the sun didn't fucking come out? This motherfucker's surely lying. Why did the sun not come out? What is happening? Like, holy shit. If you have a superpower, you just don't know how to use it. He'll be fine? Okay. One by one, the bullets sliced through the air, either swirling with a golden luster or emitting resplendent beams as they hit Steve's face. Thanks to a clown's control over his body and the persistence in practicing his marksmanship, Klein's 6 bullets were augmented with a cleave of purification accurately hit the same spot. The same spot as the first 2 bullets. They were like fists from a giant of light repeatedly pounding at the left of Steve's face. With a series of bangs... Steve has bangs? Sorry, dumb joke. Steve, who had been entangled by the strange arms and dark green vines, failed to phase a way to avoid the attacks. His head was whipped to the side repeatedly as his body trembled. His cheekbones were quickly caved in, breaking out into sharp white bones. Steve has a bolt gun. The last bullet completely tore through, splashing the Sequence 5 powerhouse's dark red blood. This opening allowed the resplendent and golden flame to continuously drill in, burning into bursts of dark green mist. Don't... In the holy light, Steve's clothes were ignited. His body was quickly charred as he dripped with grease. However, he was still alive. He's been shot 6 times in the fucking face and he's alive? Compared to Marionettist Rosego, the survivability of a Sequence 5 from the mutant pathway is clearly much better. However, the heavily injured Steve could no longer resist the strange tugging arms. His legs were moved forward uncontrollably, almost flying towards the bronze door into the deep crack that had opened. He was thrown into a darkness where pairs of eyes lurked. Yeah, but I beat you to it, so, get shit on, Nagato. At this moment, Sharon suddenly clenched her right hand and forehead. Her forehead was covered in sweat. The illusory and subtle rays of light were abruptly severed, and the indescribably mysterious bronze door lost the source of its existence. It swayed before Steve entered. It reluctantly pulled back its long arms, which were either filled with teeth or blood, and sealed a crack. The door closed, quickly becoming transparent before it disappeared. Steve's leaning body was rigid in place, blackened and shriveled like a mummified corpse that had been buried for a long time. With her right fist tightly clenched and the scarlet lunar corona on her, Sharon's figure rapidly turned incorporeal. She took a step forward and overlapped with Steve. Wait, I'm so confused. Did Steve not get pulled into the door? How is his body still here? Or does it like take their soul and leave the body or something? What is happening? Klein's spirit vision was instantly lost sight of her. However, the charred Steve raised his fist and abruptly smashed them against his already injured head. His body turned into a pulp like that of a rotten tomato, and milky white spots sprayed out before spattering to the ground. A translucent figure was also expelled. Their souls are taken? Okay, that makes sense. It rapidly spread out, turning into something that looked like a giant jellyfish. Within it was a dreamlike liquid that swished out, and a pair of deathly pale eyes that were condensing. Sharon was forced out by this strange object, and she reappeared beside it. She suddenly stretched out her left hand, letting out a silent shriek. The ground suddenly turned black, as if she had turned into a muddy deep sea. Twisted bloody vines grew out from it, splitting many sections, with each section having 4 sharp teeth and an eye. The blood-red vine wildly grew upwards, immediately locking onto the jellyfish-like phantom as it greedily sucked the dreamlike liquid within. What is happening here? The phantom quickly collapsed, and the blood-red vine once again retreated into the muddy deep sea. But with this delay, the headless, charred Steve began running. He tore across the clearing and headed for the way out. He still wasn't dead, despite already losing his head. Steve had already run a few steps before when a sudden crisp sound cracked in the silence. Klein, in a black double-breasted frock coat and with a matching half-top hat, turned to him and snapped his fingers. Boom! The dirt beneath Steve's feet was violently lifted, and scarlet flames rose up. It spread outward. When it reached the highest point, it spilled out like beautiful fireworks. Steve's body was torn to pieces from such fireworks. His charred hands, feet, guts, and blood spattered everywhere, and one of his fingers rolled to Klein's feet, and the brown, translucent biological poison bottle fell in another direction. Man, he turned this motherfucker into potpourri, eh? Jesus. The mutilated body, which was the last trace of Steve's existence, squirmed a few times before finally becoming still. Dude. You decapitate a sequence 5, they just start running. Steve was unironically, like, he got his head taken off and he went, I wasn't using it anyway. Like, what do you mean? Yeah, it's just a Wraith's durability. That's crazy, man. In the scene with the blooming fireworks, Klein felt his spirituality become more active, and the powers that still wasn't completely his had become more attuned to him. Ah, he's definitely digesting the magician potion. Good, good. In response to this sensation, he passed the revolver to his left hand. He took off his silk top hat off his head, and with his black gloved right hand, he pressed it to his chest and bowed slightly at Sharon. Sharon's blue eyes looked over, and she looked past Klein to the carnage of werewolf Tyre and Merrick. Sharon's figure disappeared, and Tyre's eyes reflected in her image. Tyre stood stiffly, with his black hair standing on end. She's just gonna possess him and kill him. Steve the cockroach, unironically, dude. He raised his hands with great difficulty and pressed them against his head. He twisted hard, and his eyes soon saw the spine. Saw his spine, which was underneath the cover of his torn clothes. Tyre twisted and pulled again, pulling his head out of his torso. Throughout the entire process, he didn't let out a single scream or a word. He saw his head. He held his head, letting the blood constantly drip out. The corpse, which had lost its head, was standing straight, without toppling. Sharon didn't immediately leave Tyre's body. She appeared to be attempting something. Very soon, bits of dark green light emerged from Tyre's head and body, quickly condensing into one of his fangs at its core. It seems like Sharon has a way of accelerating the separation of the Beyonder characteristic. Interesting. The prerequisite to do so requires her to possess the target, kill the person, and have complete control of the body. Enlightened, Klein bent down and picked up the shells that had fell to the ground, stuffing them into the metal square box one by one. That's really good, because he doesn't want the official Beyonders to be tracking him via his gun. Even though it's an illegal gun, he still doesn't want them to have a clue to start. He was afraid investigators, which would subsequently arrive, would find the artisan through the uniqueness of the shells, and hence find the person who purchased the Bribern Barbarian formula, and would lock onto the Eye of Wisdom's gathering, causing his safety to be threatened. As for the bullets, they had long been sacrificed to the corresponding deities in the holy light and flame, just like the materials in the charms. Putting the revolver away, Klein was about to take a step forward when Sharon appeared beside the biological poison bottle with exaggerated speed. She made it float up and land on her palm. Before Klein could think of anything else, the pale woman flicked her wrist and threw him a translucent brown bottle and a dark green fang. To save time, she's helping me pick up my spoils. Klein was startled. Hold on. Wait, did you see what I did to Unhinged? No, hold on. What did you do to Unhinged? Unhinged, do you ship Klein and Melissa? If you say no, you're lying. And if you say yes, there's a chance you're telling the truth. My answer is the opposite of Nagato's answer. Now it depends on whether you're lying or not. Good stuff. Yes. She even helps to loot. I know. Oh my god. It's funny because Klein got his bullets from Steve, but didn't know it at the time. Again, Unhinged, you don't understand your power, man. Klein bowing in front of Sharon. Pure aura. Hell yeah. Yes, Nagato, I did see it. Very good. Before Klein... he didn't even come into direct contact with them. Klein was startled. He instinctively pulled out a piece of paper and covered the two items. He didn't come into direct contact with them. At this moment, he saw that Sharon's complicated black regal dress had lost some of its usual tidiness and cleanliness. It fluttered gently in the wind, and a few strands of her light blonde hair were stuck to the side of her face, making her feel more like a person. This biological poison bottle comes with its own lid. I wonder what the negative side effects it has. Klein lowered his head and examined the spoils of war. He used the black cap hanging on his side to reseal the biological poison bottle so that it wouldn't continue to do him harm. Perfect Souls game waifu? Fuck yeah. Again, I didn't realize it, but she reminds me so much of the doll. Not the doll, but the person the doll is based off in Bloodborne. I can't remember. Lady Maria. Like, that's Lady Maria. Or, well, that's a fan art, but, this is Lady Maria, to be much more specific. But, like, she reminds me a lot of her. Yes, thank you, Nagato. Klein placed, as for the dark green fang, it was the Beyonder characteristic left behind by Werewolf Tyre. As Klein placed the two items into a small metal box he prepared, he used the Holy Night powder to create a wall of spirituality, blocking off the influence they had on their surroundings. He watched Sharon's figure disappear from the corner of his eyes. Steve's remnant flesh squirmed and produced a nearly translucent point of light. Similarly, he was still on guard against Merrick, lest he suddenly went crazy. Amidst this vigilance, he discovered that the healing powers of a zombie were truly astonishing. The bone-deep wounds from moments ago were now basically closed. Jesus, that's wild. One of my friends has a blush. The fuck is a blush of anything? Merrick gave him a profound look. It was as though he had remembered something and understood something. When he was done, Klein walked a dozen steps away, picking up the square metal box that that had been dug up by the zombies and shadows. Then he found Isaac's copper whistle and the master key, which was surrounded by the human-shaped candles. He glanced at it awkwardly, realized that he didn't dare to pick them up. The effects of the Scarlet lunar corona were still radiating through the clearing. This was the last trap he had set up, one that would never be used unless all other means were exhausted. For this, he had taken the time to visit a hospital's morgue and test out what the corpses would do after they got their hands on Isaac's copper whistle. It allowed him to design a corresponding plan. Can you stop the influence of the Scarlet lunar corona? Klein turned his head to Sharon, who had materialized again. She already had an additional translucent doll in her hand. Without saying a word, she placed the Scarlet lunar corona to her chest in the other hand. The circle of rubies quickly dimmed, and the light from the full moon disappeared from the abandoned land. Only then did Klein lean over and grab the key ring with his fingertip, raising up Isaac's copper whistle and the master key. Then he stored them in the square iron box with the concave bullet marks and quickly created a seal. Meanwhile, Merrick circled around and dealt with the scene. Sharon pulled up her small black bonnet and her figure disappeared before reappearing in front of Klein. "The Book of Secrets is in your room," Sharon said calmly. "That is to say, no matter what the end result is, as long as I can make it back alive, I will get a portion of the reward." "I wouldn't have gone through all this for nothing. Thank you for your generosity. The official Beyonders will arrive any time now. We have to go." Sharon nodded and asked, "Do you need any help?" "There's no need. I still have a lot of fireworks which I haven't released." As he finished his sentence, he raised his hand and snapped his fingers. The remaining explosives exploded one by one, sending up flames to the sky. They clustered around the largest and most eye-catching one in the center, producing a heavy and dreamy scene. Oh my god. Pure aura farming. What the fuck? And she's already inviting him into his apartment. Oh my god, you're right, DSV. Oh my god. Sharon's gaze was instinctively attracted to it for a second. When she looked back, Klein was no longer there. Oh shit! Oh, pure aura. What the fuck? There was only a spark that gradually dissipated. Away from the clearing, he took a small detour northwest, preventing him from running into any official Beyonders on the way. One match after another was lit on the road, and the flames quickly soared up and then quickly disappeared. Klein's figure constantly emerged from within them as he leapt out across the flames and departed the West Balam dock. Immediately following that, he took out a special bottle of extract and wiped it over his face. With a gentle wipe of a piece of paper, he removed all the paint. Dude, he just like a fucking wraith who can become a spirit and what do you call it, in a real body. He just outwitted her in terms of like making a cooler disappearance. This person can literally become corporeal, and he went, nah, I'd win. Klein shook his wrist and burnt the paper to ash. Then he picked up his cane he had hidden nearby, straightened his clothes, and walked down the street like an ordinary person. Not long after, Klein arrived at a cathedral. Its name was the Lever Cathedral. As many devotees weren't rich, they may not be able to rest on Sundays and were usually busy during the day. Thus, the cathedrals of the various churches were open until the early hours of the morning, giving most believers the opportunity to pray and repent. Klein looked up, tapped the steps with his black cane, and stepped inside. He intended to avoid the subsequent rounds of inspections of the surrounding people. A few minutes later, a hive mind team appeared at the clearing surrounded by the abandoned warehouses. There was a total of 5 of them, each armed with a different kind of Beyonder weapon, but they all frowned when they saw the cleaned up scene. They looked for a moment, then began putting in efforts to gather clues. Bro really went to the church for that. Yeah, he literally killed 2 people and then went to the church of a god he doesn't even believe in, and then went, I'm gonna pretend to talk to you, pretend to forgive me. I don't really give a shit about your forgiveness, but let's just pretend here, okay? Amen. Lever Cathedral. It wasn't even 11 yet, and there were quite a few people here. However, not a single person spoke. The entire prayer hall was so peaceful and holy that no one wanted to break the silence. Klein sat in the third pew along the aisle and leaned his black cane forward and took off his silk hat. Wearing a black double-breasted frock coat, he clasped his hands against his lower jaw and closed his eyes. His expression was abnormally calm as he faced the triangle-shaped sacred emblem in front of him. Can change, yes. Thank you, Justin. Alright, 350 done. Look at that. Klein just helped in killing, what was it, 3? No, Klein has now officially killed killed or helped in killing 4 mid-level Beyonders. These 3 today, and then Rosago. That is crazy. My favorite fight still was him versus Lanavis, dude. Holy shit. Whatever do you mean? Sherlock is a very devout follower of the Steam Church. Yeah. Oh, chapter 351. The fireworks at the end are just so good. Yeah, he's just like... Look at that. I knew it'd be fine, guys. Why are you guys worried so much? So good. Are you alright? Yes, we're gonna do this. I missed a peak moment for an ass Divas match. What's wrong with me? Back when I saw it was Jade Cargill as the danger of gooning. Don't forget the suited clown. Oh, yes, the suited clown. Oh, yeah, because he was a magician. Ah. Interesting. So 5. He's killed or assisted in killing 5 mid-sequence Beyonders, and he just became a mid-sequence Beyonder himself. This is crazy. I feel like he might be the first person ever to become a demigod and somehow kill a god. And even Roselle would be like, how does this even work? Not literally, I get that you physically can't do that, like, because you don't have the capabilities, but I just mean, like, He's unironically Batman. Like, as a Batman stan myself, like, it's the whole, you know, like, you give Batman enough time, he just straight up he can kill God. You just got to give him enough prep time, okay? Yes, let's look at the artwork. Yes. Scarlet, Lunar, Corona. Oh, that is really cool. Oh man, I really wish Klein got to keep that, but I get why he wouldn't, because then he would just be able to kill anyone off the mutant pathway at any time. They would just be fucking fodder. Klein has a great track record. Klein helping with the overpopulation of Beyonder. Yeah, exactly. Klein is just helping all Beyonders try to get up to higher sequences, because he's like, listen, less low-level Beyonders means there can be a couple more high sequence ones, okay? So we got a Miss Sharon. I'm not gonna lie to you, this does not look good. This does not look good. Maybe I don't know if you guys are seeing, but like this feels so 2D near the top here. I don't like it. And I get that it's 2D, but it's going, I don't know, I don't like this very much, if I'm honest. The master key gets disrupted. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Not a huge fan of this art, I'm not gonna lie to you. The dress is very beautiful and everything, but I don't know, something about her face is just throwing me off. I don't know what it is. And he's already prevented the descent of a true creator. Yeah, true. This is very cute. See, this is very nice. This is very nice. I like this. Oh, see, that's really good too. That's really good. What is this? Do we know what this fucking doll thing she has? Yes, Nagito, I know my face isn't showing up right now. And that's a thing I take off, because otherwise, depending on what size the art is and the ratio and stuff, sometimes I cut it off. So, like, do we know what this doll is? I'm so curious. Sharon and Merrick. Very cute. The doll. This doll right here. Yeah, I know, Nagito. My camera isn't on here. I can put it up. I don't know if I just don't want it to. Or nope. Yeah, I just don't want it to cut anything off. But fuck it, we can just do this. I'm really curious what this doll is. It mentioned it in the chapter 2, but I don't know what it is. I have to tell us. This is nice. Not bad. Not bad at all. Sharon's Merrick's jacket though is way too long. This needed to be cut off like here. He looks like he has a beer belly. Look at this man. He looks like he's wearing a chest plate. The gang. Oh, see, this is really nice. This is really nice. I like this. Sharon and Merrick's mugshots. Oh, this is so cute. This is super cute. I love this. This is great. Are we saying Sharon is 7? Are we saying these two are fucking 7 feet? If they stood on each other's shoulders, they might be 7 feet. What are we talking about? Found Steve. Jason. Tyre. Tyre. No. A big mommy? Yeah, sure. Lore accurate Tyre. Oh, that's really good. I love that. That's really good. Oh, this is, oh my lord, this is so well done. Holy shit. Should it not have 2 R's though? Am I misremembering? I thought her name had 2 R's. Am I misremembering this? I know one, because there's two Sharons. There's Lady Sharon and Miss Bodyguard Sharon. So I don't know. I keep mistaking. Captures are silent to me. Yeah, like this one, the art is beautiful. My lord, this is amazing. Her name does have 2 R's. Okay, thank you. But yeah, like no, absolutely no comments. This one's perfect. Oh my god. Oh, this is so well done too. Oh my lord, this is so well done. That's awesome. Yeah, even the yeah, this is just so well done. The holy shit. No, these were not sent. These were definitely not sent, Romero. And this one's really well done too. This one's really well done too. Yeah. Guys, come on. You gotta stop sending me more art. I have to read the chapters. We're just gonna be looking at art all day. Oh my god, this is so well done. Holy shit. The Scarlet lunar corona can be seen on her chest in the last pic, actually. What? She's kind of in this one she is kind of Chinwoo, yes, kind of a little bit. But this one's amazing. Love this. Oh, this one's brilliant. Love this one. Oh my god, the butterflies, all this. The one when she's in the mirror? Oh, really? I think I found this one okay. I found this one much more Chinwoo-ish, but to each their own, I guess. This one's brilliant. Love this. What the actual fuck is... Oh, Merrick and Sharon. Wow. Very, very nice. In a cage, because they're prisoners. Red... Okay. Romero? Last one, buddy. Last one. This is really well done, though. Fuck. This is really good. I'll send For's art after the stream to... Getting misunderstood as a curse. Yes. All right, 351. Let's get started. Yes, thank you, Justin. Oh, dude, Justin, I'm so glad you're here, because otherwise, I actually, you're the only one that reminds me of the layouts, and sometimes I forget, and fuck, I would just completely forget. Thank you. After half an hour of uninterrupted silence, Klein opened his eyes and slowly rose to his feet. He took his cane, put on his hat, and left the cathedral, taking a rental carriage back to Minsk Street in the dark. At this moment, the vigilance and the surveillance of the surrounding area had inevitably relaxed, turning into the shadows under the light of the gas lamp. Shortly after midnight, Klein took out his key, opened a door to his house, and entered the empty guest room to search for the Book of Secrets. Unhinged, you actually almost got me. Fuck. You actually almost got me. Shit. Oh, that was close. It didn't take much effort to find the old book, bound in thick goatskin, in the wardrobe in a room on the first floor. Book of Secrets, Klarman. Klein exhaled, but he was in no rush to read the book. Instead, he quickly constructed a wall of spirituality in the room, summoning and responding to himself via ritual. He then threw Azek's copper whistle, the master key, the all-black eye, the Beyonder bullets, the bottle of biological poison, the werewolf Beyonder characteristic, and the Book of Secrets, and even all the vessels above the grey fog. Fuck, he's actually using this like a spare bedroom. This is crazy. He planned on waiting for the commotion to subside before deciding on which one to take out and which to carry. After doing all this, he didn't even bother to study the werewolf beyonder characteristic or the bottle of biological poison. He simply washed up and went to bed. There were two reasons for doing so. Firstly, reading the book was too time-consuming, and it was very easy to bring trouble to his body in the real world on this rather uncalm night. Second, Klein was aware of his current weakness, which was the speed at which his spirituality was growing wasn't enough to satisfy his ever-increasing beyonder powers and mystical items. After such an intense battle, his spirituality was already drained, his head was aching, and he was drowsy. Yes, the one thing that places the greatest burden on my spirituality are the paper figurine substitutes, followed by the creation of the sun holy water with the brooch, and it wasn't used tonight. Next is the holy water creation and the flaming jump. Klein yawned and used cogitation to get rid of the state of extreme tiredness and tenseness that prevented him from falling asleep. In less than 10 seconds, he entered the land of dreams as various fragmented scenes appeared before him. I don't. Are you a fucking unhinged alt? What is happening here? What is happening? In the clearing surrounded by the abandoned warehouse, the hive mind came and went before coming again. The person in charge of investigating this incident went from being a team captain to an expert at the rank of deacon. A Cancer Bernard's brown hair remained unkempt and struck out stubbornly, making it impossible to hide them even with a hat on. On each side of the mirror was an eye-like ornament. They were built on the foundations of a black gem which looked serene and charming. A Cancer surveyed the Fuck, I tried to just read through it. Devil, you were gonna be a ordinary citizen for this stream, okay? I want you to consider the consequences of your actions. I will reinstate it before the start of next stream, okay? I want you to consider what listening to the ravings in your mind, what listening to Mr. Door has brought you. Unhinged, great art, dude. Love that. Oh my god. Ramiro didn't send anything, but you did. Oh my god, that's amazing art. If you aren't in our Discord, or even if you are and you haven't checked it out, Unhinged just sent in the most beautiful mushroom drawing anyone's ever seen. Please check it out. Where was I? A Cancer Bernard's brown hair remained unkempt and struck out stubbornly, making it impossible to hide them even with a hat on. This led to many members of the machinery hive mind to secretly joke that a deacon probably used a bomb to style his hair. Took me an entire 10 seconds. At this moment, a Cancer with his cut jaw and facial features was holding a silver mirror with ancient patterns on it. On each side of the mirror was an eye-like ornament. They were built on the foundation of a black gem which looked serene and charming. A cancer surveyed the area and said, although the rats in the sewer are experts at interfering with divination and mediumship and had already dealt with the scene effectively, this is a mysterious beyond our world and there's no way to guarantee 100% success. Probably because a cuttlefish can. It's just that simple, dude. He don't give a fuck. A cancer surveyed the area and said, no. As he spoke, he looked at the silver mirror in his hand and said with his right hand, used his right hand to touch the surface thrice. After pausing for 2 seconds, a cancer took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, Honorable Aerodes, my question is, who were the participants in the incident that just happened here? The surrounding darkness suddenly thickened and the surface of the silver mirror began to ripple with aqueous light. Soon, a scene appeared in the silver mirror. Amidst the rising flame, there was a figure floating in the air. He was wearing a black double-breasted frock coat and a half-top hat. His body was distorted and his face was indistinct. Furthermore, his face was smeared with paint. Beneath his feet, flames rose up and engulfed him. The aqueous light flashed and the scene changed. A middle-aged man in a dark red cloak appeared. His arm was burning with resplendent flames, but his head was hidden in the darkness. Cuttlefish will be bald if he's forced to read book 3. Soon after, the scene was played out in front of his eyes. They saw a woman with a complicated regal dress and messy blonde hair. However, her face was completely transparent, as if she didn't exist. Beside this lady were 2 men with black fur all over their bodies. Only their backs could be seen as they were pulled by strange arms. Finally, the change came to an end as it fixed onto the blazing flame that soared into the sky. The fireworks bloomed in a splendid and resplendent fashion as they lit up the entire scene. In the dreamlike sequence, a man in a black double-breasted frock coat appeared once again. Twisting and retracting, he faced forward. He pressed his hat to his chest and bowed slightly. Not only was his face extremely blurry after being interfered with, it also presented a glisten of oil. Just as a cancer was about to ask his teammates for their opinion, several lines of text in ancient Fasak appeared on the mirror. Based on the principle of reciprocity, now it's my turn to ask a question. If you answer wrong or lie, you will be punished. The word punished was blood red, as if it were dripping with liquid. The expression on the cancer's face was twisted at first before it turned abnormally serious. Soon after, the mirror's aqueous light flashed, and a new line of text appeared. What's your sexual orientation? Dude, is this a fucking... Is this a Twitch chat? What is this? Yes, Eridus, why would you ask someone like this? You know, something like this. It's very private, man. Come on. The trolling mirror? Like 10 people are lurking. Let's take a roll call. 6 in the morning. The sky was just beginning to brighten. The sleeping Klein awoke to the punctual church bells. Fuck, man. Have you guys ever lived close to a church that toils its bells early in the morning? Fuck. I went to visit my uncle like 6 years ago or something, and I stayed at his house for a couple of days. They had a church like down the street that had bells that toiled at 6 a.m. Oh my fucking god, it irritated the shit out of me because I got woken up every fucking day. Oh my god. According to his usual habits, he would turn around and continue sleeping until it was almost 8, but this time he immediately sat up and looked around. Yeah, I didn't get raided on the pretext of checking my gas meter. He let out a sigh of relief, and even without bothering to clean himself up, he got off the bed, took 4 steps counterclockwise, and went above the grey fog. He wanted to study his spoils from last night. I live about 70 meters from a church. Oh, yeah. We have a church. Oh, that doesn't. So they use speakers. That might actually be worse. He wanted to study his spoils from last night. Sitting in the fool seat, Klein started from the simplest. He picked up the dark green fang and observed it for a few seconds. He then conjured a pen and paper and wrote the divination statement. Its effects. That didn't mean the divination could be used as a substitute for experimentation. With the fact that he held the item in his possession, he knew a lot about prisoner, lunatic, and werewolf from Sharon and Merrick. He believed it was enough for him to attempt to gain some revelations from it. Yay, I didn't get raided after Klein after every crime. Yeah. After reciting the statement, he quickly entered the dreamland and witnessed one scene after another. A vicious wound appeared on Werewolf Tyre's stomach, and his intestines flowed out as they were dragged across the ground. However, he only washed it with water and stuffed the intestines back to his stomach. He pinched both sides of the wound, and in the end, the wound actually healed. Under the perfect red moon, he faced the sky and let out a long howl. Black fur grew out of his body, inch by inch, and the fangs in his mouth were distinct. He waved his claws and cracked the steel plate that wasn't considered thin. He ran wildly through the wilderness, creating the gap between him and the group of pursuing grey wolves as he ran further and further. He used the attendants, whose eyes were glazed but cold, charge at the enemies without fear. He also used a variety of people to kill, including bombs, and he became stronger as he lost his reasoning while in an enraged state. Opening his eyes, Klein roughly understood the characteristic of the werewolf and grasped the hidden danger. Werewolf Tyre had been under the illumination of a full moon, allowing him to be unrestrained towards his desires. After his death, he left a relatively strong spiritual mark, so those Beyonders who would use the characteristic to concoct a potion to advance themselves to the next sequence had to resist this kind of effect at an early stage, or they would show signs of losing control. However, the negative effect had yet to reach the level of a sealed artifact, and the Beyonder characteristic left behind by the werewolf could still be used as a main ingredient for a potion. That's good. At least Jason's characteristic hasn't been swallowed up by that strange door. I wonder where it leads and if there's a way to get it back. Klein put down the dark green fang, feeling both regret and sadness for his loss, before picking up the bottom of the brown translucent biological poison. He repeated the same procedure and performed a dream divination, but this time he didn't have the confidence to get a detailed revelation, therefore he changed the statement to its positive and negative effects. In the grey gloom of the dream world, Klein once again saw tragic scenes. For what? For Nikkei gift card redeeming? What the actual fuck is this? What does that even mean, Justin? What? Always check your characteristics before making potions, kids. That's just good advice. Nikkei's a... Oh, is a gacha game. I see. Okay. After another person held his head, his eyes losing focus while someone fell to the ground, scratching himself and ripping off his skin, flesh, and even bones. Another person held his head, his eyes losing focus while his aura weakened. One kept vomiting. Towards the end, the person who died was convulsing. Someone burst out laughing so hard they couldn't breathe. Some people stopped fighting each other and looked. Some people stopped fighting and looked at each other. They then hugged and kissed each other. Event that people can redeem gift cards with in-game currency. Oh, I see. When the scene reached the end, the translucent brown bottle was placed into a cup of water. The translucent liquid inside gradually turned amber in color and was drunk. The person holding onto the bottle of biological poison was weakened at first before coughing. Then he touched his forehead and found himself scalding as his condition turned for the worst. The dream quickly ended. Klein tapped his fingers on the edge of the long table as he attempted to interpret the revelation with great difficulty. According to Steve, the earlier revelation means that after the biological poison's lid is removed, it would keep emitting its poison. As for which poison the opponent gets inflicted with, it's completely random, and even the wielder is unable to control it. The poison inside is really quite abominable. The effective range of the poison can't be deciphered via the revelation. Soaking it in water and drinking the amber liquid in advance would prevent one from getting poisoned. I wonder how many minutes the soaking takes. Even if the person holding the biological bottle doesn't open the lid, their bodies would get worse and slowly get infected, and the ailment becomes serious. What's the exact cutoff time? Klein rubbed his forehead, intending to do some experiments above the grey fog when he was free, but he didn't know if the biological poison was effective in here. For example, in his current spirit-body state, he wasn't afraid of being poisoned at all. I'll leave it at this. I'll study it I'll study it in detail in the future. Klein turned his attention to the Book of Secrets, which was bound in goatskin. He then casually flipped to the first page. It was a title page with simple patterns on it, but nothing written. After flipping to another page, he saw the opening line of the Book of Secrets. We worship the moon, not the Evernight goddess. Whoa, I think we're gonna get some lore dumps now. Fuck. Nice. Okay, how about you guys catch up Nagato really quickly? I'm gonna run to the washroom. I'll be back in 2 minutes, okay? Sorry, I'm back. All right. No, get fucked, Unhinged. I was back right away. Dude, I saw you post that. That message was posted as I sat down. It was absolutely not right. We worship the moon, not the Evernight goddess. Who the fuck is this guy? This is the real blasphemy slate. What the fuck? Telling me I don't worship my goddess? Bullshit, motherfucker. Chapter 352, Breakfast. Is he going to read this book while eating breakfast, hence the name? Or what is this? All right, let's get started. Another statement about only worshipping the moon and not the goddess. Klein couldn't help but have a look of contemplation. The last time he heard about such matters was when he was learning about the life school of thought. He never expected the Shaman King, who lived his entire life in the southern continent, would have a similar point of view. In the Pale Era, at the end of the Fourth Epoch, the Berserk Sea became a veritable reality. Thus, the northern and southern continents were cut off from each other, and the life school of thought was formed in the early Fifth Epoch. Obviously, it was impossible for the life school of thought to extend itself to the southern continent before Roselle sent his men to find a new safe sea route. Shaman King Clarman was a historical figure who was active in an era more than 1,000 years before the northern continent's invasion. In other words, the two Beyonder factions, which were in different continents, had no way of communicating with each other and had chosen to worship the moon itself instead of the Evernight goddess at almost the same period of time. Such a coincidence inadvertently made one consider why. Could it be that the birth of a new god had taken away a portion of the authority related to the moon? But as a deity, he shouldn't be so obscure and unknown. In other words, although the goddess has snatched the authority of the moon, the followers of the primordial moon god had survived. They had been passed down from the Fourth Epoch or even the Third Epoch. Even after the separation of the northern and southern continent, they blossomed into two groups. One was helmed by the Shaman King, the other the Life School of Thought. Klein made a rough guess, but was troubled by the lack of clues to narrow the scope. He gave up thinking about it for the time being and quickly skimmed through the rest of the contents of the book. In the preamble, the Shaman King said very directly that many of the rituals, deeds, astromancies, summoning techniques in the book had originated from a primitive worship of the moon, and described the corresponding honorific name in detail. The one and only red moon, the symbol of life and beauty, the mother of all spiritual forces. That's actually an honorific name. Sorry, I'm just going to copy paste this. I feel like this might be important. Actually, no. I'm going to do this whole bit. That's actually an honorific name. However, it lacks the more popular descriptions like those of the Evernight Goddess or the Earth Mother. If there really is such a hidden god, his followers would inevitably develop a simpler title to address him that's more suitable for the praise than the worship of the primordial moon. Klein sensed something amiss as he began to analyze it with his own knowledge of mysticism. Besides, using the Lady of Crimson to hold a ritual would very obviously direct it to the goddess, but using an honorific name which was similar but more detailed would circumvent the goddess, pointing it to the source of their power, the primordial moon. I wonder what arcane existence it is. Klein thought with wonder and alarm. Due to his lack of time, he skimmed through the details and found that the Shaman King had said so himself. Many of the deeds and rituals were directed at the moon. For Klein, it wasn't a cause of concern. He didn't plan on copying them wholesale and ended up provoking the primordial moon, which he had no idea about. What he wanted to learn was the overall structure, design, and details of the deeds and rituals. Only by mastering the underlying rules could he come up with his own secret deeds, rituals, astromancy, and summoning techniques that pointed to the King of Yellow and Black. Perhaps in the future I'll have my own mysticism system. Klein removed the spirit pendulum from his wrist and finally confirmed the authenticity of the book's secrets. After receiving a clear answer, he was in no hurry to use the werewolf's beyonder secrets characteristics to divine a formula. After all, he wasn't able to sell it, and for the same reason he decided to delay the research of the biological poison bottle for a while. Wait, why couldn't he sell the werewolf's beyonder beyonder formula? Just because he doesn't want to piss off the Roll School of Thought, or is there something else? Klein quickly returned to the real world and drew the curtains. He saw the sun, which wasn't capable of illuminating the land. It was hidden behind the clouds and fog, looking somewhat pale. It's potentially harmful. Klein suddenly covered his mouth and nose and he sneezed. Only then did he realize that his head was aching and burning. He felt lightheaded and had seemingly caught a cold. I actually fell ill as a Sequence 7 Beyonder. Klein pulled out a piece of paper and sniffed. Yeah, dude, you're a fucking magician. That doesn't stop you from not getting sick ever. What are you talking about? He carefully thought back for a moment and quickly understood the reason. The negative effects of the biological poison bottle would gradually weaken the possessor and result in an illness. If it was carried around even longer, then it might even lead to death, and this effect couldn't be eliminated with the use of spirituality seals. Okay, yeah. Thank you, Romero. And Nagito. Last night, Klein's spirituality was nearly emptied after the battle. While his body was still weak from the poison, he carried the biological poison with him and hid in the Lever Cathedral for half an hour. Adding the time he spent on Minsk Street, he had embarrassingly fallen ill. Thankfully, it's not serious. It doesn't affect anything. Klein sneezed again as he prepared to soak himself in a hot bath. Could he not just bring down the sun charm, whatever the fuck, and then cleanse himself and then be better? Or would that not work anymore now that he's just sick and there's no poison? Klein sneezed again as he prepared to soak himself in a hot bath. After washing his face and rinsing his mouth, he specifically fried an egg to reward himself. The fragrance was tantalizing. Now it's just a natural illness? Okay. A Shaman King's Book of Secrets and a biological poison battle, a mystical item that's not worse than the sun brooch. Yes, it's way worse than the sun brooch. What are we talking about? As well as his Sequence 7 characteristic. I made quite a killing this time. It's just a pity that I didn't manage to obtain the Zombie Beyonder characteristic. Klein sat by the side of the dining table as he ate and did a tally of his spoils. What made his heart ache was the fact that he had used a total of 11 Beyonder bullets each worth nearly 10 pounds. That's to say I burned 100 pounds. It's really like throwing money to deal damage. No wonder most low and mid-sequence Beyonders are so desperate for money. Klein looked down at his breakfast. They only added up to a few pence. Dude, you're not exactly poor. Relax. You have like $300 or $400 in savings. Plus, hopefully the dividends from the fucking bicycle start coming through, and then this guy's really raking in the money. By the way, Ramiro, you were right. It literally aches his heart to shoot his enemies. He's like shooting at him, and he's like, this hurts me more than it hurts you. After breakfast, Klein idly read the newspaper, sneezing from time to time as he wiped his nose and mouth with a piece of tissue paper. If you want to become a mod, just say Ink Zone Quill is justified, and he'll make you shut the fuck up, Nagito. As soon as the church bell stopped chiming at 8 o'clock, his doorbell rang. Klein wasn't surprised to see the reporter, Mike Joseph. The reporter took off his hat and greeted Klein. He then went straight to the point. Detective Moriarty, do you have time to take the job? Although he had a cold, he still needed to take on jobs like usual to avoid suspicion from anyone during this time. Klein had just finished a job and said, I'm slightly ill, but that doesn't affect my fighting or shooting skills. Mike suddenly smiled and said, thank you for your help. Let's set off now. Detective Moriarty, have you had breakfast? I'll treat you. As your employer, I should be in charge of providing you your meals today. Inviting me for breakfast? Klein was startled. I just finished eating, but I suggest you go to the East Borough to have breakfast there. That way you can see a lot of things. I'll just need a cup of coffee when we're there. No problem. The carriage I hired is waiting. Ink Zone Quill did nothing wrong. Unhinged, you're really pushing your luck today, man. I'm in a good mood today, so so you've been getting away with it so far, but you're really pushing it today, I will say. Susie's a rich lady. Her pouch with crocodile skin is worth hundreds of pounds. Yeah. Klein sized him up and said, Sir, you'd better change into something a little worse. Otherwise, there'll be a lot of work for me. Mike looked down at his tweed coat and said with some realization, This is too eye-catching? It is in the East Borough, Klein pointed. I have some specially prepared clothing. We're about the same size. Mike couldn't help but exclaim, You really are a professional. Professional criminal, Klein lampooned. After changing into ordinary workers' clothes, the two boarded the carriage and headed for the outskirts of the East Borough. Achoo! Klein pulled out another piece of tissue paper, wiped his nose and mouth, and blew his nose. Since there was no trash can nearby, he folded the tissue paper properly and stuffed it back into his pocket. The food in this coffee shop is okay. Of course, this is relative to the residents of the East Borough. Klein pointed to the slightly greasy coffee shop at the corner of the street. He occasionally came here for breakfast whenever he spent the night in his one-bedroom apartment nearby. Looks like it's a pretty good restaurant. Mike didn't think it was a coffee shop. It was already past 9, and there were very few customers in the coffee shop. The East Borough residents typically finished their breakfast at around 7 and began to work or to look for work. After accompanying Mike as he ordered stewed beef with potatoes, bread, and coffee, Klein looked around for a window seat. At that moment, he saw an acquaintance, an elderly man he had helped while pretending to be a journalist. He was the one who brought me in here in the first place. Why is he only having breakfast now? As Klein thought, he turned to Mike and said, You have an interviewee. As he spoke, he carried his coffee cup to the tramp. The man was wearing the same thick jacket as before. His grizzled hair was oily and his beard was obvious. However, he no longer looked tired, and his face was no longer appallingly pale as before. Good morning! We meet again. Klein sat down from him and greeted him, noticing that his breakfast was black bread with a large cup of cheap tea that was worth a penny. The elderly man raised his head, took a close look, and said, Mr. Reporter, it's you? Klein laughed dryly and pointed to Mike and said, This is my colleague. He wants to do a deeper investigation on my previous interview. Being an experienced and knowledgeable reporter, Mike didn't say anything when he heard that. All he did was nod and smiled and greeted the elderly man. As for the matter of the detective Moriarty pretending to be a reporter, it wasn't like he'd only found out about it today. He was the one who lent him his fake reporter's identification. So you really are a reporter, the man blurted out. But that doesn't stop you from being a kind-hearted person. Klein smiled and said, So, how have you been recently? The elderly man drank a mouthful of tea and said, Thanks to your help, I finally had a good night's sleep and ate my fill, so I wasn't that weak. My original plan was to go back to my original job, making shoes, but they didn't want me. They said my hands shook. He lowered his head and chuckled, skipping that episode. Later, I went down to the docks and found some work. It was tiring, but at least I made some money. I rented a spot in someone's house for only 6.5 pence a week. Of course, I can only sleep there at night. Well, that's how working at the dock is like. I went early today and ate nothing. I raised my hand and shouted my name at and the supervisor. I raised my hand and shouted my name and the supervisor's name, but I wasn't chosen, so I had to come back here. Fortunately, there's still a chance in the afternoon. Those people in the morning might be busy till late and won't be fighting against us for jobs. Klein listened quietly, occasionally taking a sip of the bad coffee. As for Mike, he took out a pen and paper and quickly made notes. Sorry, give me 1 sec. $3.53. Today is quite different from yesterday. Finally, the elder man with gray hair by his temple. Mike is like, yeah, suffering, not being able to work. -2. Technically, that would be 4 unhinged, right? +4? Or no, I guess it would be -4. Yeah, no. Finally, the elderly man with gray hair by his temples took a sip of tea and sighed with a smile. It's actually 5 due to the factorial principle. Okay, how about you describe to me what do you think the factorial principle is, please? In truth, this is already much better than my previous situation, and it's much better than many of the people here. For instance, he pointed to the window to the tramps huddled in the corner. Now I'm Abby, I don't believe I've seen you here before. Thanks for popping by. How you doing? Sorry, give me 1 sec. Sorry, guys, give me 1 second. Just... Okay, sorry about that. If you're curious, Unhinged, I just sent you the I just sent you what the factorial principle is. If you're interested. Five. That's not how that works, Unhinged. Klein and Mike looked over and saw a group of cowering tramps lying on the ground in a filthy place that provided shelter from the wind. They were of all ages and sexes. It was possible for them to never wake up again in the coldness of late autumn. It was then that Klein noticed that an old woman in her 60s standing by the street. Her dress was old and worn, but she was relatively neat and her hair was neatly trimmed. I love how they're interviewing a homeless person and all I hear is fucking boss music. Jesus Christ. The white-haired old lady had the usual look of a tired tramp, but she still persisted in not squeezing together with the group. Instead, she slowly walked by the roadside, occasionally gazing into the coffee shop numbly. She's also a pitiful person. The former tramp who had eaten the leftover black bread also noticed the old lady inside. She was said to have led quite a good life in the past. Her husband was a grain merchant and had a very spirited child, but unfortunately he went bankrupt and her husband and child died not long after. She's different from us, really. You can tell at a glance. She won't be able to hold on much longer unless she's lucky to be admitted into the workhouses every time. As he listened, Mike's expression changed from quiet to somber. He let out a sigh and said, "I want to interview her. Can you invite her for me? She can eat and drink whatever she wants." The man wasn't surprised at this request. He merely looked at Klein and Mike separately as if to say, "The both of you are indeed colleagues." That's really sweet. That's really sweet. Yes, I'm sure she would like that. He drank his tea, got up, and walked out of the greasy coffee shop. Not long after, the elderly woman in her old but tidy dress followed him in, her pale face slightly lightened due to the warmth of the coffee shop. She continued to tremble as if wanting to release the coldness in her body bit by bit, and absorb the relatively high temperature within the coffee shop. Even after she sat down on the chair, she still took a full minute before she could truly warm up. "You can order whatever you want. This is the reward for accepting my interview," Klein spoke on Mike's behalf. After Mike nodded, the old lady modestly ordered toast, low-quality cream, and coffee. She then smiled and said, "I heard that one cannot eat greasy food after not eating in a while." Very polite and self-restrained, not like a tramp at all. Man, this is so sad. Like, I've not obviously at this level, but like I've had to have I've met people like this. I've met like people who were older, like in their 60s or 70s, and had a relatively good life, and due to one event or another, like, you know, in their late 40s or their 50s, they come in and we're chatting about their banking or whatever, and they're telling me what happened. It's like and it's like horrifying to listen to. Like, this person who led a great life all through, like, you know, they came from a great family, their husband or their wife, or like they had a great job, and then just some shit beyond their control happened, and now they're in their 60s and just don't have any money. And it's like, fuck, that is like so heralding to hear. Like, I would have clients where like I would have them and then I couldn't stop thinking about them for like a day after. Those appointments fucking sucked, dude. Oh my god. Sorry, I didn't mean to get heavy or whatever, but yeah, I remember like having like these conversations that just fucking sucked. Before the food arrived, Mike casually asked, "Can you talk about how you became a tramp?" The old lady revealed a look of reminiscence and said with a bitter smile, "My husband was a grain merchant who mainly bought all kinds of grain from domestic farmers. but we rapidly went bankrupt ever since the Grain Act was repealed. Oh my god. The Grain Act. This was mentioned in like chapter 3 or some shit, when Klein went to buy his very first piece of bread. Like, the price of bread just kept dropping. He wasn't very young to begin with. After suffering that setback, his body quickly collapsed, and not long after, he passed away. My child, a brilliant young man, had been learning the ropes of doing business from his father. He couldn't suffer the blow and ended up jumping into the Tussock River on a moonless night. His first suicide didn't work. He was sent to the magistrate court, and the police and judges were very impatient, feeling that he was wasting their time. If you want to commit suicide, please do so quietly and successfully. Don't trouble us. That's probably what they wanted to say, but it was too direct. They put my child in prison not long after he committed suicide, and the second time he succeeded. Aww. Man, this shit is so hard to read. Fuck. Suicide is illegal, which is the most fucked thing I've ever read. It's like, yeah, like that's what's gonna fucking stop. If someone is suicidal, they would be like, oh, but it's illegal, so I'm not gonna do it. Like, what the fuck? The old lady spoke very calmly, as though it wasn't something that happened to her, but for some reason Klein felt a deep sense of sorrow. Nothing is more lamentable than a dead heart. He suddenly recalled a saying that he heard in his previous life. In this world, suicide was not only prohibited by the churches, it was a punishable crime. Yeah, sure, put my corpse in jail. Yeah, I guess it's much more that, like, if you fail, which I think it's something like a high percentage of suicides fail, especially if you're a woman. I think the suicide, like, failure rate is, like, significantly higher for women than it is for men, but it's still high across the board. It's so that if you attempt it and you fail, they can hopefully restrain you and then maybe get you some help, as I assume what the logic is. But it's like the dumbest way to go about it, dude. Yeah, I don't know. As for Klein, the reason Klein knew very well. First of all, many suicides were committed by jumping into the river, and without being discovered in time, there was a certain probability of them turning into a water ghost. Second, the suiciders often had abnormal emotions. Thus, under such states, ending their life was equivalent to a sacrificial offering which could resonate with a particular strange or terrifying existence. Thus, their corpse and certain objects that were around after their deaths would carry strange curses that harmed others. This was probably where the misfortune puppet behind Tingin's Chanis Gate came from. Therefore, the 7 Orthodox churches forbade their believers from committing suicide through their own doctrine, and the royal family also promoted the corresponding legislation. Of course, this seemed ridiculous to Klein. How could a suicider be afraid of punishment by the law? Exactly, yeah. If I have a right to live, then I also have a right to die. That's interesting, Justin. Like, I don't know how much you guys want to talk about this or whatever, but kind of true. But I would assume that the retort to that would be the right to life is not granted by the government. It's protected by the government. At least this is what they would say in the U.S. for sure. Like the U.S. Constitution says, the government doesn't grant any rights. The government isn't capable of doing that. The government protects the rights you were given by God, and your life is a precious gift given by God, and as such, you can't really take it because it ain't yours really to give or to take away. That's what I assume the retort would be. I would assume. Again, I'm not saying that's right or anything, or I agree. I'm just saying that's what the retort would be. Well, the second thing is, Ramiro, it's also kind of a right. A healthy brain should never go to suicide. It doesn't make any sense. Like, that feels wild to say, and I apologize for it, but A healthy brain should be able to cope with like whatever's going on in life. Assuming your brain is healthy and you're not suffering from depression or some kind of mental illness, no matter how down you are or how fucked your situation is, your brain will adjust and you'll feel okay. Like, we know this from studies from people who have like lost limbs or whatever in accidents or something. Like, for the first little bit, they're like down in the dumps and their like mental health is just fucked. But if they're of a healthy brain and they don't have like depression or anything, they'll go back to their same baseline level of happiness, even missing a limb. Your brain is supposed to adjust to adverse circumstances, but when you consider suicide, it means there's something wrong in your brain chemistry. Like, your brain isn't doing what it's supposed to. Your brain is supposed to always prioritize your prolonged existence because, you know, biologically, that's what you're here for. So there is something, like, you are not in the right mind, like, definitionally, but like, I don't know. Like, I think on principle, I would probably still say if someone's an adult and they wish to do it, I guess, I mean, yeah, but I still think in general, guess I'm not mentally well then, nothing new. Oh, come on, don't talk like that, Justin, you're fine. You don't consider anything like that, you better not. There are some situations the vast majority of people cannot cope with. Technically true sound, but those would be like extraordinarily rare circumstances. Like, I'm talking like, oh, I'm starving to death in the desert and it's easier for me and it's better for me to just have a quick painless death than to suffer through starvation or dehydration for the next 3 days or like wild shit like that. But like, that's not what's happening to someone in Canada or America when they're fucking committing, or the UK when they're committing suicide. It's not from like lack of, is when they sacrifice themselves for the people they love. That, or again, when it's just like a undeniable situation where you're like, okay, listen, like I don't have a way out, I'm just gonna die. Again, even then, theoretically, even in that situation, a healthy mind should be like, listen, I'm gonna keep walking. The chances of me dying of dehydration are really, really high, maybe 99%, but there's a 1% chance someone finds me or I live. If I kill myself right now, there's a 100% chance I die. So your brain should still tell you not to do that. But my father died last year. I'm not kidding. I was really thinking about it. Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm sorry, Nagato. Yeah, don't think about stuff like that, man. Your father would want you to be here, okay? Don't think about stuff like that, man. But like, seriously, if any of you ever are going through some rough shit and you don't have anyone to talk to, shoot me a message, okay? I'm always around. I'm habitually free, and I like, just if you guys ever need to talk, okay? Good man, Nagito. Okay, sorry, that got heavy fucking fast. Jesus Christ, I'm sorry. That was not what I intended to get into, but while Mike was taking notes, he was about to say something when the owner of the coffee shop brought the food over. Fill your stomach first. We'll talk later. All right, the old lady ate the food in small bites, appearing very cultured. Having not ordered much, she quickly finished her meal. After reluctantly drinking the mouthful of coffee, she rubbed her temples and pleaded, "Can I get some sleep first? It's way too cold outside." "No problem," Mike answered. The old lady thanked him gratefully a few times before she sat down on the chair and curled up into a ball as she fell asleep. Mike looked at the man beside him and said, "You seem to be very familiar with this place. I wish to hire you as our guide. How's 3 soli for the day? I forgot to ask for your name." The man quickly shook his head and said, No, that's too much. I only earn 1 soli a day most of the time at the dock. Just call me Old Kohler. Old Kohler. Interesting. Like Old Neil? Okay then. 2 soli a day. You deserve it, Mike declared. Dude, you could have given him 1 more soli. Why are you this fucking... You could have just been like, no, in good conscience, I can't pay you any less. And just paid him that. After witnessing this strange bargaining, Klein blew into a piece of tissue and was about to drink a cup of coffee. Then he suddenly sensed something was off. He turned to look at the old lady who was curled up asleep on the chair. No, she didn't die. Her face, which had turned ruddy due to the coffee, was pale again. The colors of her aura and mood had vanished. Klein stood up and subconsciously extended his hand to check if the old lady's breathing. As Mike and Kohler looked at him in surprise, he said, "She's dead." "That's so sad, no." Mike opened his mouth, but no words came out. Kohler tapped his chest thrice and said with a bitter smile, "I knew she wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Such things happen every day in the East Borough. At least she filled her stomach and died in a warm place. I hope it'll be the same for me one day." Jesus Christ, man, what the fuck? Klein was silent before he said, "Kohler, go get the police." "All right." Kohler tapped his chest thrice once more and ran out of the shop. The boss glanced over but didn't come over. It was as though it wasn't something he needed to concern himself with. After a while, a policeman in a black and white checkered uniform carrying a baton and revolver entered the police shop. He looked at the dead lady, asked Mike and Klein a few questions, then waved his hand and said, "That's all there is to this. The three of you can leave after I get someone to collect the corpse." "That's it?" Mike blurted out in surprise. He was obviously not very familiar with the East Borough. Check Discord, General? Sure. Nice, yep. Yep. The policeman sneered. Such incidents happen in large numbers every day in the East Borough. He rolled his eyes and looked at Klein and Mike. "You don't look like people from here. Who are you? What's your identity?" Mike produced his press identification, and Klein said he was a private detective responsible for protecting him. The policeman's face turned serious as he looked at Klein and said, "I suspect you're carrying an illegal gun. I want to search your belongings. Please, cooperate with me, otherwise I will consider it a case of resisting arrest." Mike was suddenly worried because he knew that private detectives usually unlawfully possess firearms. Klein expressionally spread out his hand. All right. He let the policeman search him, but there was nothing on him. After the old lady's corpse was taken away, the disappointed policeman left. God, this policeman was just hoping to fucking get Klein on something. This little shit. Mike clenched his fist and pounded on the table. A living person just died here, and all he cares about is investigating a lawful possession of firearms? Wait. Sorry. I'll get back to being serious for a second. One of the things that helped me get over my father's death is a game character. His ideology is that every bad thing happens to you, a good thing will. What character is that, Nagato? Klein be like, haha, I hit again. Oh, hold on. Oh, I can't find it. Oh, I'm not gonna find it. There was a game animation. I can't remember what game it was, but it was like it was a FPS where like the character's holding a gun, and then you inspect the gun, and for a second the gun just vanishes, and like, and then the gun pops up again. I was like, that's what Klein's doing. Nagito Komoda from the visual novel. Oh, is your YouTube named after him? Oh, okay. You already answered that. Never mind. um, uh, Upon saying this, Mike looked at Klein and said, "You didn't bring a gun?" Klein shook his head, pulled out his holster and revolver from under the table, and said, "As a detective, I have a lot of experience in this area." As a magician, he could place the revolver right in front of someone and make it impossible for them to notice it. Moreover, since he didn't bring any ordinary bullets, the Beyonder bullets were temporarily left above the grey fog. His revolver was currently empty, but this didn't stop him from shooting with his revolver. Oh, that's right. All he needed to do was use his mouth to emulate a bang when he pulled the trigger. Upon seeing this, Kohler whispered from the side, "So you're a detective?" Klein pointed at Mike and casually said, "I was also entrusted with a mission by this gentleman last time." Mike sat there without refuting. After a moment of silence, he said, "Although I've investigated the gangs and witnessed the miserable life of some prostitutes, I'm not really familiar with the situation of the East Borough. Please help open my eyes to this place. Allow me to see any problems with this investigation plan." As he spoke, he took out a few sheets of paper from the inside of his pocket and spread them on the coffee table. Klein glanced at him. At interviews with East Borough residents at different ages? That's too troublesome. I think we can divide it according to location. In better apartments, 5 or 6 people squeeze into a one-room apartment. Others stay in the corner of a street that's sheltered from the wind, park benches, bars, and workhouses. In addition, they can be segregated by what time they begin work and their rest times. Mike listened carefully and said, "Not a bad idea. What do you think, Kohler?" Kohler pinched his nose and said, "I can't read, but I think whatever Mr. Detective said seems alright." Mike thought about it, changed his plan, and said, "Let's go to a nearby apartment and make a random selection." That's interesting. You're lagging. Interesting. Yeah, I don't think it's just you. My YouTube is telling me. My YouTube is telling me that's happening. I don't know why it is, though. I'm dropping frames, but why? Interesting. It's fine now? Okay. I don't, do you guys want me to restart stream? I can. I don't know. Yeah. I'm gonna have to figure out why this happens occasionally. It's fine? Okay, fuck it. Then we'll keep going. I don't know why it's doing this. I'm gonna have to figure something. Maybe OBS has like an update or something that I'm missing. I gotta figure something out. Sorry, give me 2 seconds. Okay. I want to see if that's better, maybe. Okay. Hopefully that's a little better. I don't actually know, but we'll... Okay. Okay. It's saying... Bro, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Okay. It should hopefully be good now. I think it was probably due to the fact that because I've been messing around with my overlays so much, I had like I had so many overlays built up, and OBS has to keep all of them running basically at the same time. So I think it was basically what was happening was it was running so much information. You guys were only seeing one of them. But like it was running so much information through that even that my internet it was eventually like, so I think that was probably what was happening. I'm gonna streamline a couple of things, and then that should hopefully be clear and not happen again in the future. Okay. Sorry, let me just adjust the titles, and then we'll get going and finish the last 2 chapters. Okay, there we go. Backlands East Borough. At an intersection, Mike Joseph saw a number of pitiful-looking children in rags along the street. He wiped his mouth with a handkerchief and planned to head over to give them some pennies. However, his actions were stopped by old Kohler. They're thieves. Thieves? What about their parents? Or are they controlled by a gang? As a senior journalist, Mike had never been to the East Borough, but he had heard of instances of a few gangs controlling street children to steal and beg. Oh, good lord, I'm sorry. Parents. They either don't have parents, or their parents were once thieves or might still be. Of course, Mr. Reporter, you're right. Many of them are under the control of gangs, and it's said that the gangs will teach them how to steal. For example, they will hang a gentleman's coat on the wall, put a handkerchief in the pocket, and hang a pocket watch on the side. And through repeated practice, the children will attempt to steal the handkerchief without shaking the pocket watch. This is what I've heard from others while at the workhouse when I was homeless. I remember the youngest thief ever caught on the street was only 6 years old. 6. He seemed to recall his child who was lost to a disease and couldn't help but take out a cigarette from his pocket. He couldn't bring himself to smoke it, so all he did was take a sniff. 6 years old. Mike was stunned at the number. Klein listened quietly and sighed. This is the East Borough. He looked around, composed himself, and said, "This place is closer to a jungle than human society." Jesus Christ, that's not a nice thing to say. Our interview has to be treated as an adventure. You have to learn how to avoid the territory of dangerous creatures. You must also avoid little things that don't seem to be too harmful to you. Well, I'm talking about mosquitoes in the jungle. Mike, if you expose the thickness of your wallet to those kids, then even if you protect it well and don't let them steal it, robbery is a destined outcome for the rest of the adventure. If you dare to resist, then perhaps there will be one more body floating on the Tussock River tomorrow. Mr. Detective, you're absolutely right. There are so many people in East Borough, no one pays notice to the few people missing every day. Mike listened intently for a few seconds, and he suddenly said 1.35 million. That is the preliminary estimate of the population count of the East Borough. But I know there's definitely more than that. That many? Old Kohler was astounded. Although he had experienced the days and nights in the East Borough and knew there were a lot of residents, he didn't expect it to be this many. That is several times the population of Tingen. Klein subconsciously compared it to the place that was most familiar to him. Which way should we go next? Definitely not straight, Old Kohler said. That area is under the control of the Zmonger gang. They're very vicious and completely unreasonable. If they discover any reporters doing interviews, they'll definitely beat us up. Zmonger gang? Isn't that the brainless gang that caused me to lose 10,000 pounds? He was some kind of executioner. I don't even remember his name. Fortunately, the 10,000 pounds was eventually exchanged for the Sears corresponding sequence 7, 6, and 5, and the All Black Eye, as well as the Intis Ambassador's life. I wonder who ended up obtaining the manuscript of the third generation difference engine. Klein instantly recalled what had happened last month. So wait, if Klein can figure out from the little son how to remove the corruption from the Rosego's eyeball, he can use that as the main ingredient for his sequence 5 potion when he eventually gets to Marionetist, right? Zmonger gang? That gang is mainly composed of Highlanders, Mike asked thoughtfully. Mr. Reporter, have you heard of them? Mike sneered. They're involved in a lot of cases, and they have a reputation outside the East Borough as well. It's said that one of their members was involved in a case of the Intis espionage. Yes, okay, perfect. The person next to you was the person in question, the person who made the report and also the victim. If you gentlemen know about this Zmonger gang, then why don't the police arrest them? Old Kohler asked. Mike's expression suddenly turned a little awkward as he coughed twice. We can only capture those who have committed a crime. There's no evidence for the rest, so we can't arrest them. Moreover, East Borough is so broad and there's so many people, it would be hard to find anyone who is bent on hiding. It's easy to destroy one Zmonger gang, but as long as a Highlander comes to Backland, even if they keep up their strong tradition of being combative while failing to find other means of earning a living, it's only a matter of time before a new Zmonger gang appears. This is a complex social issue. Klein pointed to the left and right and said, pick one. Duolingo threatening my family? Hell yeah. Old Kohler pointed to the right side of the street. That's where the proscrito gang is active. As long as we don't provoke the girls who do business on the streets or in the bar, they won't notice us. It's still morning, so there shouldn't be any problems. They're probably still sleeping. The word proscrito meant outlaw in the Lone language. So it could be said that the gang itself, the gang who gave itself such a name was pretty self-aware. Klein and Mike had no objection to this, and the guide leading the way, they entered the district. The buildings here were relatively better. The streets less squalid, and the air was filled with the smell of oyster soup, fried fish, ginger beer, and the smell of various food and beverages left behind by street vendors, as well as the fishy smell of fish-related products. While walking here, Klein felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. It was as if he had returned to Tingen City, to Iron Cross Street, to the street outside the apartment where he had originally lived, the lower street. The only difference was that Backland was closer to the sea and had more traffic. There was a lot more fish. This is a relatively good apartment. In this area, back when I loitered around, I discovered that the gentlemen and ladies inside are all quite clean. Old Kohler pointed to the pale yellow 3-story building. As they got closer, they noticed a sign hanging in front of the apartment. It had a picture of a pocket watch, a clock, and a screwdriver with the words "Watch Repair." A watch craftsman lives here? Klein dug up a similar memory from Klein dug up a similar scene from a memory fragment from the original Klein. Back then, Benson, Melissa, and himself had gone to a somewhat similar place to repair the pocket watch which his father had left behind, but despite repairing it several times, it would quickly break. This continued until Melissa fiddled with it and ultimately fully repaired it. It became the most decent thing that Klein had on his person during that time. After Klein's death, the pocket watch, which had both monetary and sentimental value, was not buried with him. It should now belong to Benson, right? I wonder if he'll think of me every time he takes out that watch. Probably. Mike wasn't sure. If anything went wrong with his pocket watch, it was usually sent to the original watch store he bought it from. The store would then send it to a repairman or to a craftsman they had partnered with. If anything went wrong, as soon as they entered the apartment, they saw a middle-aged man with a messy beard. The gentleman had come out of the bathroom and was about to return to his room. When he saw three strangers walk in, he hurriedly asked, "Do you want something repaired?" What a coincidence. We actually met a craftsman immediately. Mike took out his pocket watch and smiled. "Yes, my pocket watch has recently not been keeping time well. Can you help take a look?" He didn't reveal his identity and planned to interview him over some casual chit-chat. He pointed, the middle-aged man immediately revealed a smile and led them into a two-bedroom apartment which had its doors half concealed. He pointed at a chair beside the table and said, "Please, wait a moment, I'll go get my tools." "Your tools are not at home?" Mike asked in surprise. The watch craftsman shook his head and said, "How is that possible? A set of tools is very expensive. There's no way I can buy them on my own. The only way is to pool everyone's money to buy 3 or 4 sets, and whoever has business will use them. So we moved in together. It's more convenient this way. If we live too far away, we have to spend a lot of time paying for public carriages to borrow tools." As he spoke, he left the room and walked to the side. So it isn't a coincidence that we met a watch craftsman. Many of the residents here are of this profession. Old Kohler looked around the room and enviously said, "Before I fell ill, I lived in such a place as well. My wife would help sew others' clothes at home, and my 2 children. My 2 children. Mike sighed and lowered his voice. "I thought watch craftsmen were rich." "Me too," Klein covered his mouth. Dude, Benson is actually the GOAT. After a cordial exchange with several of the apartment's residents, Klein and the others once again embarked on an adventure. They had walked... They had walked about 100 meters when they heard people quarreling along the street. The 2 women were using all sorts of obscenities against each other, allowing Klein to learn many words while he had never heard before. He carried the family. Dude, he was the backbone of the family for real. Anyone who does that has like my eternal undying respect. The reason for their argument was that the one on the left accused the woman on the right of making the apartment they lived in dirty and noisy. The woman on the right was scolding the woman on the left, thinking that it had nothing to do with her. After all, no one asked her to invite guests at night and sleep during the day. "Is that the laundry maid?" Mike asked. "Yes, I know her. She's a widow, helping people wash their clothes with her 2 daughters, Old Kohler answered. Mike thought for a few seconds and said, "Take me to their place." Old Kohler nodded and led the 2 of them to around the argument before they entered the dilapidated apartment building that was obviously inferior to the one they had just seen. As soon as he arrived outside the laundry maid's room, Klein immediately felt the dampness. In the room hung dresses that were not dried yet. A 17 or 18-year-old girl was squatting in front of a large basin, scrubbing clothes that were completely covered in bubbles. A girl that was younger than that was holding a hot iron wrapped in wet linen clothes and was carefully ironing the clothes that were done washing and drying. Her careful actions implied that she had been scalded by steam several times, and probably also burnt clothes several times. This was both their workplace and the place where they slept. Wet moisture permeated the room and seeped into their bodies. In addition, the stench of all kinds of smell was very distinct. Doesn't it feel terrible? Mike pinched his nose. Klein replied in a muffled voice. I've got a cold. There was no humor in his words. Mike released his fingers, walked into the room, and said to the two surprised girls, I'm a reporter, and I'd like to interview a laundry maid. The girl who was scrubbing the clothes shook her head numbly and said, We have a lot of things to do and can't afford to waste the time. Mike's request for an interview was rejected. He came out with a heavy expression and silently walked back to the street. After continuing to take a look, he pursed his lips and said, Let's continue. Jesus Christ, what am I witnessing? This is this is so depressing. What the fuck? I came here for cool fights. I didn't came here for economic commentary. What the fuck? Jesus, this is so depressing. City of Silver. After a thorough examination of Derek Berg, who had experienced hallucination both visually and auditorily, he was brought to the bottom of the spire. This place took in residents who showed signs of losing control, and various methods were used to save them. Walking in the gloomy and creepy creepy corridor, he suddenly felt a chill. Help! A strange, shrill voice suddenly sounded from a sealed room. Help! The voice came to a halt, and then there was a silence. What it was like during the Industrial Revolution? Shows how the king fucked the country with the Grain Act. Hold on. So was the Grain Act the thing that exponentially increased the price of grain? And then at the start of the series, if I'm remembering right, Klein went to buy bread and bread just became way cheaper. And the lady said because the Grain Act was repealed, right? If I'm remembering right. 355. Ooh, okay, we're definitely gonna get something cool because every time there's a simple title, something cool happens, and every time it's like a sentence long, and it's like, an adventure in the East Borough. It's like fuck all happens basically. I've got your number, Cuttlefish. I know how you title your shit. I've got you now, you little shit. Now, it caused many agricultural workers to lose their jobs, thereby increasing the price, right? Because workers lose jobs, which means supply drops. Fuck. You know what? Actually, it's better if I just show you guys visually than trying to do this. So when workers lose jobs. So, basic Econ 101 chart, right? Supply, demand. The demand for bread is gonna remain the same. Like definitionally, it has to, because it's like bread is what's known as Econ as a inelastic good, meaning its demand doesn't change much because it's like a thing that people need. So demand is going to be here, but if supply is really high, then over here the price is low. On the other hand, when supply is down here, or actually no, this isn't. Actually, no, I did this backwards. Hold on. When supply is down... How would I do this? Fuck, I always forget this. Sorry. when supply is up here, this is the price. But when supply is down here, the demand has to drop because there's not enough supply, so they can't. Like if there's only 200 tons of bread that was manufactured or produced, I don't care that you want 500. I can't sell you 500. I don't fucking have it. Which means to make up for it, I'm gonna increase the price. So it's a simple delta. So it's like a simple econ. So when the workers lost jobs, supply went down. When supply goes down, price goes up. It's like a basic econ thing. And as soon as the Grain Act was repealed, workers got jobs back, which means supply went up, which means price dropped. It's like econ 101. I can't draw the fucking chart correctly because I'm autistic. Is price control for grain? I don't think so. Because price control is artificially decreasing prices. Price control is prices up here. Here's the delta. But this is too expensive for a lot of people to afford. So the government artificially says, okay, your price can't be higher than here. Well, fucking the demand is going to remain the same, but now the price is here, which means the person who owns the item, which in this case is real estate, so like houses or whatever, or apartments, they feel like they're getting shafted because they're like, dude, what the fuck? For the same apartment, I was charging $2,000 a month, but now the government says I can only charge $1,000. Like, they feel like they're getting shafted, but for the fucking people who can actually afford houses now, it kind of has a fucking good impact. There are negatives to it too, because again, theoretically disincentivizes people from buying homes who want to rent it out, but then that has the consequence of lowering prices, and since the demand goes down, which means more people can afford houses, which means less renters. I'm getting into really complex 3D econ shit. I don't want to bore the fuck out of everyone with that, but yes, the Grain Act, they artificially reduced the price of grain. Also, it caused a lot of workers to go to industry work, which was oversaturated, causing their pay to be very low. Exactly, yeah. Okay. 3:55. Outsider. Give me 1 second. I'm going to grab my bottle of water. I'm both out of my coffee and my tea at this point. Fuck. All right. Okay. In the eerie silence, the first thought Derek Berg had when he came to his senses was to rescue that person. However, the two guards that held him in the middle didn't show any reaction to it, as if everything that happened was just his imagination. Someone is calling out for help. The young Derek informed the two Dawn Paladins. On his left, the tall knight clad in armor said, "Don't be fooled. That's just the normal behavior of those who are on the verge of losing control." Is that so? Maybe he cried out for help because he just isn't willing to give up and lose control and become a monster, Derek thought. Following the change in mood, the illusory buzzing sound in his ears became more distinct. After silently taking a few steps forward, the Dawn Paladin from before pointed to a door and said, "You will be staying here for the time being. We will bring you your food and medicine on time." As he spoke, he took out an iron black bottle. This bottle was constructed from the remnants of straw-like objects left over from the City of Silver staple food, black-faced grass. Upon encountering a liquid, it would produce a thin film, thereby achieving a waterproof and sealing effect. Derek took down the bottle and took the bottle and gulped it down, feeling a cool sensation slide down his esophagus and into his stomach. His entire being rapidly became quiet, and swaying scenes before his eyes stabilized, and the auditory hallucinations in his ears gradually weakened. At the sound of the iron door closing and locking, Derek entered his own room. The first thing he saw was a candle flickering with a faint yellow light, and then he made out a low bed, a chair, and a square table. Other than that, there was nothing else. However, the walls, including the door, were all engraved and complicated and mysterious symbols and labels. They seemed to form a complete seal. Derek's emotions were also suppressed by the medicine. He sat down on the bed without the slightest hint of curiosity before lying down. I think Nagito, he's going to read it over Saturday and Sunday, right? So over 2 days, he can read 15 chapters a day. I've been averaging 15 chapters a day for the past 2 weeks. Given I do it in 2 streams, but, same thing. If he does 2 6-hour streams, assuming he reads at the same speed I do, then yeah, he can do it. He's fucking wild. I mean, good for him, dude. I couldn't do that for 2 days in a row, 6 hours. Wait, 1 day? I thought he said Sunday, Saturday and Sunday, big stream. A little over 12 hours from now, we're locking in and reading until we're done. Yeah, no, he just said maybe finishing Sunday. Dude, he's out of his fucking mind. 30 chapters? It will be at the end of volume 2? Yeah, no worries. I'm not, yeah, I won't tune in. I haven't tuned in for the last little bit. After an unknown period of time, he suddenly heard the sound of someone banging on his door. However, this didn't come from outside his room, but his neighboring cell. Derek sat up and listened. He heard a sharp, high-pitched wail from the knocking. His hair stood on end as he abruptly stood up, taking an extremely defensive stand. At this moment, thumping sound spread to the metal walls that were separated by 2 rooms, slowly smashing a protrusion. This is a good chapter? What the fuck? I would have thought this was a fucking boring chapter. Never mind. Derek was about to pray for holy light. Oh, good lord. Derek was about to pray for holy light when the scene before his eyes suddenly lit up. It seemed like the entire space around him had been moved to the outside world, just in time for the lightning to streak past. The sound of the wall being smashed beside him vanished, and the bottom of the spire regained its silence. It wasn't an absolute... Oh shit, yeah, you're right, Justin. Sorry, I already said this. Nope, never mind, you're right. It wasn't an absolute silence. Rather, the sound of the light footsteps echoed for a long distance. It only turned silent after the echoes continued for a long time. What the fuck is happening to me? Oh my god, something's like hitting my throat. I'm sorry. Derek was wondering what happened to the Beyonder in the neighboring cell when someone knocked on the metal wall on the other side. It was as if someone had bent their finger and was lightly tapping. "Who is it?" Derek asked. The knocking immediately stopped, and after a few seconds, a deep yet rather old voice was faintly transmitted. So it turns out to be a young fellow. "You are..." Seeing that the person could communicate rationally, Derek leaned against the wall and pressed his ears against the cold metal. The elderly voice chuckled and said, "The person next to you almost lost control several times. He ultimately couldn't be saved today. He completely lost control? Derek asked through the wall, so he's become a monster now? No, not a monster, but a corpse. He was finished off by the item sealed in there, the elder voice sighed. I've been here for 42 years. Yes. Those guards told me that they've seen too many similar incidents. I took a whiff of that biological poison? Yeah, maybe. Derek was surprised and returned with a question. You've been here for 42 years? Normally speaking, after losing control could be divided into 3 stages. The first was warning signs, such as auditory and visual hallucinations. In the second stage, the person's body and mind were already out of control, and from time to time they would display either terrifying or strange states. As for the third, it was a complete breakdown, transforming the Rampager into a terrifying monster. So curious, would old Neil be considered just at step 2 then? Would he just be in the second stage where his mind and body were out of control and he was displaying terrible or strange states? This time, the time it took from the second stage to turn to the third stage was rather quick. Perhaps just after discovering the symptoms, one would witness a seemingly ordinary Beyonder turn into a monster which could be found in the darkness. In other words, after a second stage Beyonder was sent to the bottom of the spire, they would either be treated with medicines, rituals, and other methods, slowly stabilizing and allowing themselves to leave within 18 months, or they would quickly lose control and be purged. It was impossible for someone to be locked up for 42 years. As a first stage Beyonder, they would only take between a few days to less than 20 days to eliminate all symptoms and leave. He had some modicum of control. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. The elderly voice immediately chuckled and said, "That's right. I also didn't expect I would be here for 42 years. I don't have any signs of losing control, but they believe I'm rather dangerous and can turn into a monster at any time." Derek frowned slightly and asked curiously, what happened 42 years ago? At that time, neither of his parents had been born. The elderly voice was silent for a moment before saying, "I was once a captain of an exploratory team." Whoa, that's cool. "We found a destroyed city about half a month away from the City of Silver." This was calculated based on our speed.